Just let me know.
I haven't seen LEMMiNO's video on it. I just meant I remember the event. Did they solve it? No. At least they give some bill. No. Yeah, I mean, I'll double check, but I'm pretty sure it's still unsolved. They just have a working theory. Yeah, no, it's still not solved. It's just working theories. Let's do some Punk Chick in the 5 gift sub Sweat. Thank you, man.
Delivery manager.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Sweat. Thank you for the long time of watching, Handyman.
Malaysian 370, standby.
At Kuala Lumpur International Airport, a Boeing 777 is preparing for departure.
Malaysian 370, request level. 370, we are ready, requesting flight level 350 to Beijing.
The
Malaysian
unidentifiable.
Airlines
Oh yeah, I forgot.
Flight 370 is a daily passenger flight between Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia and Beijing, China.
370, 32 right of takeoff. Nice.
42 minutes
some
past
cold.
midnight, Flight 370 is given clearance to depart.
The
On
bit's
board
beef.
are Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah, First Officer Farik Abdul Hamid, 10 cabin crew members, and 227 passengers.
Was this plane ever found? I don't know. I don't know.
Malaysian 370, Lumpur radar, good morning, climb flight level 250. Morning, level
Thanks, the bits.
250,
No way.
Malaysian 370. Malaysian 370, climb flight level 350. Climb level 350, Malaysian 370.
Less than an hour into the flight, the plane is cruising over the South China Sea at an altitude of 35,000 feet. The night sky is clear, and the weather
They
is
found
calm.
pieces, but not the whole
Flight
thing.
370 is then instructed to signal air traffic control in Ho Chi Minh, Vietnam, as it is about to enter Vietnamese airspace. The flight controller in Kuala Lumpur says goodnight, with no sign that anything should be amiss.
Malaysian 370, maintaining level 350. Malaysian 370. Malaysian 370, maintaining level 350. Malaysian 370. Malaysian 370, contact Ho Chi Minh 120.9. Good night. Good night, Malaysian 370.
Thanks, the Resub Acid Redemption. Yeah, I know
1
Jeremy
minute
do it.
And 43 seconds later, the aircraft suddenly vanish from radar screens at Kuala Lumpur, Ho Chi Minh, and Bangkok.
What?
This form of positional tracking depends on a signal being
quickly?
emitted by one of two transponders aboard a plane, and so its disappearance would suggest both transponders ceased to function, or the system was manually deactivated by someone on board. All subsequent attempts to contact and ascertain the whereabouts of Flight 370 are unsuccessful. The aircraft has seemingly vanished without a trace. After missing its scheduled time of arrival in Beijing some 4 hours later, Flight
Thanks, Resub
370
Snarly.
is officially declared missing. And in the wake of that announcement, the most expensive search effort in aviation history is about to commence.
And then I remember like a year after this, Malaysian Airlines also had another plane go missing or another accident, I don't recall. But that one was really fucking eerie, because one of the passengers had tweeted, "Here's my flight if it goes missing," and then it actually fucking did.
Of the flight's disappearance between the South China Sea and the Gulf of Thailand. The search area was soon expanded, however, after the Malaysian military disclosed additional information. Unlike the radar system employed by air traffic control, long-range military radar does not
Had to
rely
meet
on
the
transponders
Gronkowskis.
but use reflectance to track the position
Just done
of
work with them
targets. A
through the
review of the
company and
data
then became
collected by the
friends.
Malaysian military revealed that moments after contact with Flight 370 was lost, the aircraft had deviated from its scheduled flight path with a subtle turn to the right,
Yeah, you just haven't
followed
found
by
it
a
scary.
long turn to the left. The aircraft had then flown back towards and across the Malaysian peninsula before turning right near the island of Penang. It maintained this northwesterly heading until it escaped the radar's coverage. Over the next few days, the Strait of Malacca, the Andaman Sea, and the Bay of Bengal was scoured by a multinational fleet of aircraft and vessels, but there was no trace of Flight 370. Meanwhile, investigators began to analyze the aircraft's satellite communication records.
What the fuck?
Like all modern airliners, Flight 370 was equipped with a satellite communications terminal, or SATCOM, to send and receive transmissions to and from the ground. Prior to departure, the SATCOM terminal had logged onto the satellite network and established a connection with a ground station in Perth, Australia. That station then maintained a detailed record of all the incoming and outgoing traffic between it and Flight 370. This is what it contained. Prior to the flight's disappearance over the South China Sea, everything appeared to be working as intended. Then, at some point during this portion of the flight, the SATCOM link was severed.
What happened? Did they see like a fucking dragon in the sky and just like get the fuck away from it?
3 minutes after the flight vanished over the Andaman Sea, the terminal requested to log back onto the network. The SATCOM link was successfully re-established and was not disrupted again until nearly 6 hours later, when the flight is presumed to have crashed due to fuel exhaustion. During these final hours, 2 attempts were made to contact the plane via satellite telephone. Both calls were acknowledged by the SATCOM terminal and would have been routed to the cockpit. Yet, they went unanswered. The terminal had also responded to 5 automatic status requests. In short, if the ground station had not heard from the aircraft in over an hour, it would transmit a signal to confirm the terminal was still online.
It's a real story.
While these transmissions did not contain any information about the flight's position, investigators were able to measure the distance between the satellite and the aircraft at the time of each transmission, based on how long it took those transmissions to be sent and received. This generated 7 rings of possible locations from which 7 of these transmissions are thought to have originated. By taking fuel consumption, speed, and other factors into account, flight path analysis indicated the most probable origin of the final transmission to be somewhere along this arc in the southern Indian Ocean. The search effort shifted accordingly, and as the region fell within the jurisdiction of Australia, the Australian government took charge of the operation. Over the next few weeks, the search area was progressively refined to account for oceanic drift as well as improved estimations of the flight path. But this part of the southern Indian Ocean is so remote it took 6 days just to get there. A new fleet of aircraft and vessels gradually covered more than 4.5 million square kilometers of ocean, but Flight 370 was nowhere to be found. If the impact with the ocean had been sufficiently forceful, it was possible the resulting sound had been recorded by underwater listening devices known as hydrophones. This possibility was investigated, and 4 hydroacoustic monitoring stations had recorded something.
It is crazy how much shit there is, like, already in the world. Like, if it crashes in the middle of nowhere, luckily we still have these robo-lizards that we have just for monitoring. Might be picked up by one of those.
While the timing and direction of the sound were reasonably consistent with the final satellite transmission, the estimated origin was not. The sound was in all likelihood caused by nothing more than geological activity. Flight 370 was also equipped with 2 underwater locator beacons which had a battery life of some 40 days, and as the deadline approached in early April, signals with a pulse and frequency somewhat similar to the signal emitted by the beacons were detected at depths of up to 3,000 meters. An autonomous submersible then spent weeks scanning the seafloor where the signals had been detected, but no wreckage was ever found. And nothing would be found until more than 16 months later, when a discovery was made on the opposite side of the Indian Ocean. On the 29th of July 2015, a group of people were cleaning up a beach in Reunion, a small island to the east of Madagascar, when they stumbled upon this 2-meter-long metallic object covered in barnacles. Aviation experts quickly identified the object as a section of an aircraft.
I guess I've never seen a barnacle. Looks like it's fucking growing almonds. Or like little sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds or something. Damn, barnacles are fucking weird.
Covered in barnacles. Aviation experts quickly identified the object as a section of an aircraft wing known as a flaperon. Upon closer inspection, internal markings including dates and serial numbers conclusively ascertained the flaperon belonged to Flight 370. Even though Reunion Island is some 4,000 kilometers west of the search area, and more than a year had gone by since the flight disappeared, the location was consistent with simulations of debris dispersal patterns. There was now tangible evidence that Flight 370 had crashed somewhere in the Indian Ocean. The discovery of the flapper arm prompted numerous searches along beaches and shorelines of southeastern Africa, and at least 31 additional items of interest have since been recovered and examined. Some of these items include a section of the outboard flap from the right wing, a piece of cowling from one of the two engines, a partial door from the nose landing gear, a section of the vertical stabilizer.
I fucking hate airplanes, man.
From one of the embedded headrests.
This is why I don't fly. This shit is terrifying.
18 of these items were identified as either likely, highly likely, or almost certain to have originated from Flight 370, whereas only 3 could be confirmed. The remaining 11 could not be identified. There were no traces of an explosion found on any of the debris tested, nor was there any evidence of a fire except for 3 small burn marks on one of the unidentifiable items. The search for debris was further aided by Earth observation satellites. Analyses of satellite imagery from March of 2014 uncovered a number of images which appear to feature man-made objects floating on or just below the surface in the southern Indian Ocean. However, the images were not nearly sharp enough to resolve any identifiable markings, and multiple searches notwithstanding, this debris was never recovered. A satellite image taken mere hours after the final transmission also captured what appeared to be a contrail some distance away from the search area. A later analysis, however, concluded it was most likely a shadow from a somewhat linear cloud formation. The underwater portion of the search continued for months and eventually years before it was finally suspended in early 2017, by which point
they gave up.
120,000 square kilometers of seabed had been scrutinized. The search effort was then resumed by an American salvage company known as Ocean Infinity, but after more than a year of searching,
well, how would
too
they have done
came
that,
up
Ryan?
empty-handed. Unless the final resting place of Flight 370 can be located, it may be impossible to determine exactly why it crashed. Nevertheless, there have been no shortage of theories. On the day of the disappearance, 2 of the passengers raised suspicion as they had boarded the flight with stolen passports, which immediately prompted concerns of a hijacking. But investigators were unable to link the 2 men to any terrorist organizations, and soon determined they had traveled under false identities because they were seeking asylum, not due to any nefarious intent.
Yeah, like hijacking wouldn't make any sense. They didn't make any demands.
Passengers were identified as a flight engineer who might have possessed the necessary expertise to take control of a Boeing 777. Apart from the 239 persons on board, Flight 370 carried nearly 11 metric tons of cargo. Among the items listed on the flight manifest was a shipment of lithium-ion batteries, which led some to suspect a fire might have broken out mid-flight. For instance, the crash of
Why do we
UPS
still
Airlines
use lithium
Flight 6
batteries?
in September of 2010
Nothing good comes
was
from
the
that
result
shit.
of a fire that was ignited by a pallet of lithium-ion batteries. Another potential source of ignition would be an electrical malfunction. The crash of Swiss Air Flight 111 in September of 1998 is thought to have been caused by a fire within the electrical wiring above
My
the
phone
cockpit.
doesn't use lithium-ion batteries,
and
ion
disabled
batteries.
multiple
It's an
avionic
iPhone.
systems, including the
It uses
transponders
children's
and
tears to
SATCOM.
power it.
In the case of Flight 370, the sudden loss of communication and subsequent deviation
Thanks
from
to
its
Tier 1,
scheduled
hello there.
flight path might have been a direct response to a fire. The 2 pilots may have turned back towards Malaysia to attempt an emergency landing at the nearest suitable airport. But no such attempt was ever made. Instead, Flight 370 kept going and remained aloft for another 6 hours. Some have theorized the crew might have been incapacitated by a sudden or gradual loss of cabin pressure. For instance, when Helios Airways Flight 522 failed to pressurize in August of 2005, the pilots quickly fell unconscious. Yet the aircraft continued to fly on autopilot for more than 2 hours until it ran out of fuel. Airline pilots are of course trained for such an event.
Wait, what
In the
the
event of cabin
fuck?
depressurization, fell unconscious.
Wait, did it crash or did it land itself? What the fuck? We have the capability for the plane to just completely fly itself on the pattern? I thought you still needed the pilot present to guide it. I thought it was just kind of like activating cruise control in your car. Hold on a second. Did it crash or did it like just have a successful landing all autonomously? Oh, it crashed. Oh, fuck. So it didn't pressurize and everyone was incapacitated. Holy shit. Oh, did he say it crashed? Oh, I just looked at this. I didn't even notice it said crashed. Oh, that'll do it. Thanks to the resub, Erotic and J. Cuddy.
Yet the aircraft continued to fly on autopilot for more than 2 hours until it ran out of fuel. Airline pilots are of course trained for such an event. In the event of cabin depressurization, an automatic system is designed to deploy oxygen masks to give the pilots enough time to perform an emergency descent to a more breathable altitude. The data recorded by the Malaysian military radar does indeed contain altitude information, but it is highly inconsistent. In fact, the Boeing 777 is incapable of performing the extreme altitude fluctuations recorded. At one point, the aircraft exceeded its maximum operating altitude by more than 15,000 feet before making a 50,000 feet nosedive in less than a minute. Attempts to recreate these maneuvers on a flight simulator were unsuccessful, and thus the data was deemed inaccurate and unreliable. If Flight 370 did lose cabin pressure at 35,000 feet, and the pilots were incapacitated before descending to a more oxygenated altitude, it might explain why the aircraft remained aloft for as long as it did. What is a bit more difficult to explain, however, are these alterations in heading. Flight simulations have established the aircraft must have been under manual control during the initial left turn, as the bank angle or inclination of that turn was beyond the limits of the autopilot. Subsequent turns, however, could have been either manual or automatic. But for the autopilot to have made these course corrections, someone with the requisite knowledge must have programmed it to do so. The only other alternative is that the aircraft was in fact under manual control.
Thanks for the bits, Beef, and hello there. Yeah, I was talking about it the other day, hello there. I still haven't caught up on all of it, but yeah, it's a pretty fucked situation.
In late June of 2014, several news outlets reported that a special investigation had identified the captain of Flight 370 as a prime suspect. A search of the captain's home had uncovered a flight simulator which supposedly contained a suspicious route which ended in the southern Indian Ocean. At the time, there was no official acknowledgement that such a route had been recovered, and a lengthy public report issued by the Malaysian government in 2015 made no mention of such a discovery. Then, in 2016, confidential documents pertaining to a forensic examination conducted by the Royal Malaysia Police in May of 2014 was leaked to the media. These documents made it clear that such a route had not only been recovered, but thoroughly examined. Soon thereafter, the Malaysian government confirmed the existence of this simulated flight path, and this is what it looks like. It should come as no surprise that many regard this as damning evidence of premeditation, but according to investigators, it is not quite so evident. The data recovered consists of 7 coordinates, 2 in Kuala Lumpur, 2 in the Strait of Malacca,
what was he planning to do? Drive it straight to fucking Antarctica?
And 2 in the southern Indian Ocean. The data was reconstructed from a file that had been automatically generated and saved by the simulation software a month before the incident. However, it's not clear whether the coordinates originate from the same flight session. In other words, it might not be correct to simply trace a continuous line between these 7 coordinates, as they could be from separate sessions. The forensic examination by the Royal Malaysia Police simply concluded no activity captured conclusively indicate any kind of premeditated act pertaining to the incident of MH370. Even so, the similarities between the simulated route and the presumed route of Flight 370 directly influenced the search operation. Australian investigators considered the possibility of someone deliberately extending the range of the flight by gliding the aircraft off the fuel exhaustion. If so, the plane could have traveled an additional 200 kilometers. Alternatively, the range could have been reduced by a controlled ditching prior to fuel exhaustion. While ultimately deemed unlikely, these 2 scenarios did affect the search effort. If the captain steered Flight 370 off course with the intention of crashing in a remote part of the southern Indian Ocean, his motive is an even greater mystery. Sahari Ahmad Shah was 53 and married with 3 children. He had more than 18,000 hours of flight experience and a spotless track record. Investigators found no evidence of financial issues, and his monthly expenses before the disappearance indicated nothing unusual. He had no history of mental illness, nor had he displayed any recent changes in lifestyle or behavior. He was raised on the island of Penang, which has led some to speculate the flight's second turn to the southwest of Penang was the captain getting a final view of his hometown. Some believe a hijacking could have been politically motivated, as Zaharie was an avid supporter of a democratic opposition leader who was sentenced to 5 years in prison mere hours before Flight 370 took off. Others point to unconfirmed reports of marital issues, but this is contradicted by the official investigation and disputed by family members. The only real inconsistency noted by the final report is that the captain failed to repeat the assigned radio frequency during the last verbal communication.
Malaysian 370, contact Ho Chi Minh 120.9. Good night. Good night, Malaysian 370.
It would have been standard procedure to repeat the assigned frequency as the captain had correctly done a few minutes prior.
370, contact Lampu Radar 1326, good night.
Alright, 1326 Malaysian 370.
Whether this omission is indicative of anything but a mistake is anyone's best guess.
Yeah, I don't think that means
By
shit.
all accounts, Captain Zaharie was an affable and well-respected pilot who was passionate about aviation, as evident by the photos and videos he shared on social media.
Hi everyone, this is a YouTube video that I've made.
Oh, that's kind of cute.
Community service after learning.
The co-pilot was found to be even less conspicuous. Farik Abdul Hamid was only 27 and due to marry a fellow pilot. He had nearly 3,000 hours of flight experience, although only 39 hours in this type of aircraft. Much like Zaharie, Farik had no financial, mental or interpersonal issues of note, nor was there any evidence of conflict between the two of them. Some questioned the plausibility of a pilot-instigated hijacking due to the apparent lack of interference by the other pilot. Well, when Ethiopian Airlines Flight 702 was hijacked by the co-pilot in February of 2014, he did so by merely waiting for the captain to take a bathroom break before locking the cockpit door behind him. The co-pilot was then free to divert the Italy-bound flight to Switzerland to seek asylum. The only noteworthy piece of evidence in regards to the co-pilot of Flight 370 is his phone. You see, when the confidential documents were leaked, they also confirmed another long-circulated rumor, namely that a cell phone tower had briefly established a connection with an iPhone 5S belonging to the co-pilot as Flight 370 approached the island of Penang. According to investigators, it was not a phone call as has been widely reported by the media, but merely an automatic location signal. Why this information was omitted from public reports, we may never know. So what is one to make of all of this? On the one hand, the simulated flight path seems suspicious. On the other, it is difficult to cast any substantial doubt on either of the two pilots' character.
Yeah, I mean, the dude seems nice. Like, I don't think
to deny a hijacking is consistent with the available evidence. Then again, we're missing some quite major and literal pieces of evidence. The final report issued by the Malaysian government in 2018 could not attribute the loss of communication nor diversion of Flight 370 to a malfunction. Instead, it is believed that someone manually manipulated the aircraft and its systems. For instance, investigators believe SATCOM was manually disabled by a sudden and prolonged interruption of power. Then, once power was restored, the terminal simply rebooted. Likewise, the alterations in heading are believed to be the result of manual inputs. With that being said, the uncertainty of these findings are repeatedly emphasized due to the limited evidence available, and the report does never explicitly state the flight was hijacked. In fact, no real conclusion is reached. Both the Malaysian and Australian government agree that Flight 370 crashed in the southern Indian Ocean, but that the cause is indeterminable without the wreckage, the location of which has managed to elude some of the foremost aviation experts in the world, as well as an impressive arsenal of cutting-edge technology for more than half a decade. Authors, aviation experts, and independent investigators have all chimed in to offer their own thoughts and theories as to the nature of the crash and the location of the wreckage. Some believe there was no crash, but that the aircraft was shot down by an American naval base in the middle of the Indian Ocean. The satellite transmissions were then supposedly
That wouldn't make
forged
any sense,
as part of
though.
a massive cover-up.
Wouldn't explain
Others
this.
believe the aircraft turned right towards India and traveled as far north as Kazakhstan, completely undetected. Debris was then supposedly planted along shorelines of southeastern Africa as part of a massive cover-up.
That makes sense, I guess.
Another theory suggests the aircraft was remotely hijacked and controlled by someone on the ground.
Thanks to Prime
While
Greg.
Boeing and other companies have experimented with technology that would allow for an aircraft to be remotely controlled, no commercial airliner is known to be outfitted with such a system. On the less conspiratorial side, the assumption that Flight 370 flew in a straight line and at a constant speed after turning left towards the southern Indian Ocean might simply be incorrect. In early 2018, a French team of independent investigators proposed an alternate flight path, whereby an attempted landing on Christmas Island led to a crash site much further north than the region identified by the official
Christmas Island, huh?
While a surface search of this area was conducted about a week after the disappearance,
What are the odds?
the underwater phase never reached this far north.
Thanks to the resub, Jimmy.
As of the making of this video, the search operation has been suspended, but there have been talks of potentially resuming the search. For now, it seems, the vanishing of Flight 370 will remain a mystery.
I had no idea it was that deep. From what I remember, I thought it was just pretty well understood that it crashed. And I thought it was just like a straight line and then something happened, they didn't know what. I had no idea there was this whole like turn, all this shit. I had no clue. That is so fucking weird. So the first turn had to be manual. They had to manually turn off the systems like shit. Why do people keep saying shot down? That wouldn't make any sense. That doesn't explain this at all. And also why the systems would be turned off. It was shot down by 5G towers. Yeah, maybe that makes more sense. Thanks for the gift sub, Skittle, and the resub, Jimmy. What an interesting fucking mystery, man. Yeah, I fucking hate planes. If even one plane malfunctions and crashes, I'm never going on one. It's fucking horrifying. I wish we could just have some sci-fi shit where it's just a giant portal that rips through space-time continuum, so that way you don't have to be like reatomized. You just like in Jumper, you know? Or not Jumper. Doctor Strange. You just open this giant thing and you see the other side and you just step right through. Simple and easy. Thanks for the gift sub, King Sloth. Yep, very familiar, Papa. Sure, Johnny.
In early 1959, a group of hikers decided to head out on an expedition across a mountainous region of Western Soviet Union. The group consisted of 9 experienced men and women greatly familiar.
For the record, new information about Dyatlov has surfaced over the last few months.
Would prove to be their last. Despite a criminal investigation, photographs and journal entries, the case remains unsolved after more than half a century. This is the case of Dyatlov Pass.
Hey, thanks for the 5 gift subs, Spicy Meat. Fucking tier 3 and gift subs, man. Thank you. Thanks for the gift sub, Licked.
In the early morning of January the 23rd, 1959, a ski and hiking team of 10 boarded a train headed for the Ural Mountains in the middle of the Soviet Union. The group consisted of 8 men and 2 women.
Hey, Big T's, hope you're doing well.
Dyatlov as the group's leader. As the train slowly advanced deep into the mountainous Siberian taiga, the group diary received a final entry. I wonder what awaits us on this hike. Will anything new happen?
Oh,
over the next few days, the group continued to alternate between modes of transportation.
Red Rockstar.
First a bus, then a truck, then a horse and sleigh, and eventually they proceed on foot and skis. On January the 28th, one of the hikers named Yuri Yudin had begun to feel quite ill and eventually decided to head back, while the remaining group of 9 continued as planned. These photos were taken just before they parted ways, and it would be the last time he saw his friends alive. The group resumed their expedition across the snow-covered outback and documented everything of note using diaries as well as multiple cameras. Recovered photos and journal entries suggest that the trek progressed as one would expect, with no unforeseen complications. Just lots of snow, bitter cold, and an increasingly arduous landscape. On February the 1st, they reached the foot of a mountain known to the indigenous Mansi population as Dead Mountain.
Ooh.
They spend the better part of the day progressing up the slope
Very on the
and eventually
nose.
decide to set up camp only a few hundred meters from the peak.
Thanks for 5 gift subs, Extinct.
These are some of the last photos recovered from the cameras, and the last sentence of the final entry reads, "It is difficult to imagine such a comfort on the ridge, with shrill, howling wind hundreds of kilometers away from human settlements."
This one shows bodies. Let me do a quick scan. I mean, I'm sure... Oh, yeah. There's a whole section called The Bodies. When we get to that chapter, I'll just go ahead and play it safe. I won't show that chapter. I'll just let you hear the audio.
A few weeks later, friends and relatives begin to worry. No one has heard from Igor or any of the other members of the group. After much debate, a team of volunteers eventually head out to find them. On February the 26th, the search party is finally able to locate the camp on the slope. It's obvious to the first at the scene that something has gone horribly wrong. The tent is in scrambles, covered by a thin coat of snow. The hikers' belongings and equipment was found orderly placed inside the tent, but the tent itself had been slashed open with a knife from the inside.
Whoa.
The next day, 9 pairs of footprints lead the search volunteers down the slope towards the nearby woods. Given that the footprints left rather mild indentations in the snow, would suggest that they descended the slope in a rather calm and orderly fashion, as opposed to running away in panic. The footprints could be tracked for about half a kilometer from the tent until the trail was completely covered by snow. So they continued in the direction of the trail and under a large cedar tree at the edge of the forest, next to the remains of an improvised campfire, they found the frozen bodies.
Alright, let's just not take any chances.
Of Yuri Doroshenko and Yuri Krivonoshenko. It would take over 2 months for the bodies of all 9 hikers to be recovered. The first 2 were found severely underdressed. No jackets, no pants, no gloves, hats, boots or anything else one might expect given the frigid climate. Only light shirts, underpants and socks. At the time of their death it would have been around 30 degrees below zero. The cedar tree had signs of damage as if someone had climbed it, with branches broken up to 5 meters high. Perhaps they were attempting to locate a tent in the pitch black darkness,
XQC watched that. That's
like
one of the first things that comes up when you type in Dyatlov.
Or something. The next 3 hikers were found at varying distances between the tent and the tree, covered by a few centimeters of snow. They were better dressed than the previous 2, but not by much, as they still lacked essential items such as boots, hats, and gloves. They were all found facing the direction of the tent as if they were struggling to return at the moment
I'm not
of
taking
death.
a chance.
While some of them had sustained minor injuries, all 5 had died of hypothermia. It should also be noted that 4 of them had died while intoxicated. The last 4 hikers were found at the bottom of a small hill, covered by 3 meters of snow, 75 meters from the tree.
Again, a lot has come out about this over the last few months from what I remember.
3 of them had sustained lethal injuries. 1 had a fractured skull, and 2 had fractured multiple ribs and suffered massive internal bleeding. The medical examiner believed the injuries had been sustained from a fall and compared it to a car crash. The injuries had been sustained while they were all alive and could not have been inflicted by another person. 2 had also been found with gaping eye sockets, and 1 of the women had a missing tongue. The last of the 4 had a broken nose and a deformed neck, but died of hypothermia. the most mysterious of all, 3 articles of clothing were later found to be abnormally radioactive. On May the 28th, the criminal case was discontinued with a cryptic and incredibly vague conclusion.
Okay, I think that's
the lead
it.
investigator writes in the final report, "The cause of death was an unknown compelling force
Actually,
which
hold
the
on.
hikers
Let me
were
double
unable..."
check before I let it ride uninterrupted. Yeah, it seems to be the only time they show the bodies. Next is just campsites and stuff. Real quick though, again, I'm gonna double check, but I'm pretty sure there was a huge Dyatlov Pass breakthrough recently. Yeah. I remember it was kind of big on Reddit, so that was a couple months ago. Yeah, I believe, I won't spoil it. Well, this kind of spoils it. But yeah, you know.
To overcome. Not exactly the most satisfying answer and barely a conclusion at all. So, just in case the Galactic Empire had nothing to do with the death of the hikers, is it possible to explain some of the more enigmatic details in a less vague yet credible fashion? Let's give it a shot. The fact that Dubinina was missing her tongue has been taken way out of proportion. Some say that it was cut off or ripped out while she was still alive. Others say it was eaten by scavengers after death, while some even claim the tongue was later found somewhere else. But I've read the medical reports and this is what it says. The diaphragm of the mouth and the tongue is missing. That's it. There's nothing about cutting or ripping or anything. I don't know how or where it began, but there seems to be an exaggerated importance placed on this missing tongue, while in reality, it's a rather minor detail. At least the medical examiner believed it to be a minor detail, otherwise he would likely have elaborated further. For example, the same section of the same report states, "Gaping orbits, the eyeballs are absent." Equally mysterious, right? Well, no, because the medical examiner does provide an explanation for both. Soft tissue injuries to the head are post-mortem changes to Dubinina's corpse, which was recently exposed to water prior to detection. He even adds putrefaction and decomposition in parentheses to clarify exactly what it means. And this was not even exclusive to Dubinina, as the 4 last bodies were all damaged due to the melting snow. Now, some claim that her tongue must have been removed while she was still alive. But can we really rule out Sasquatch? Pointed to the fact that she had about 100 grams of blood in her stomach. But that's not exactly true either. The relevant portion of the forensic examination reads, "The stomach contained up to 100 cubic centimeters of a dark red, slimy mass." That's about 10 centiliters of something, most likely food, mixed with something red, most likely blood. So we don't know how much blood was in her stomach, just that there was blood in her stomach. Which isn't that strange, given that she was suffering from massive internal bleeding. One of the most mysterious aspects of this case is that 3 separate articles of clothing discovered on 2 of the bodies were found to be radioactive. Which does indeed sound a bit mysterious, but you have to keep in mind that almost everything is slightly radioactive. So we need more details.
True.
The radiological studies claim that under normal circumstances, an area of 150 square centimeters should not exceed 5,000 disintegrations.
Everything is radioactive, literally everything.
Only 3 articles of clothing exceeded or equaled that limit at 5,000
They were fucking nuked. Yeah, that's probably what it was.
And 9,900 DPM. The only explanation given in the report is that the clothes were contaminated as radioactive dust fell from the atmosphere, or the clothes were susceptible to contamination when in contact with radioactive substances. In other words, they were unable to determine exactly how the clothes were contaminated, but it's not unrealistic to believe it to be a result of natural processes.
Not really
but
before we made nukes, FYI.
It wasn't due to the elements. There may
Bro,
be
you're just outright wrong. Wait, what?
Kolevatov had previously worked at a facility
You think
developing
nukes made
nuclear
radiation?
materials, and Krivonoshenko had previously worked at a top-secret plutonium production plant for nuclear weapons. and the 3 articles of radioactive clothing belonged to Kolovatov and Krivonischenko. Around the time of the hikers' disappearance, numerous sources claim to have seen UFOs in the form of orbs of light moving across the night sky for a few seconds up to several minutes. These include 3 soldiers and 2 different hiking groups. Some witnesses also claim that the indigenous Mansi population, as well as a group of geologists, had told them that they had observed fireballs in the sky around the time of the incident. The problem with UFO sightings is that they are, well, unidentified and often unverifiable as a result.
Which means they have to be true.
One of the hiking groups reported to have seen the UFO during the night of the incident, while the other sightings occurred before or after. Then there's this. This is the very last photo taken with one of the hikers' cameras. It appears to be a photo of some type of light source taken in the middle of the night.
What if it actually is aliens?
The photo is about as undescriptive as the UFO it is claimed to depict. It could no doubt be a photo of a UFO, and it could no doubt be a photo of a candle, flashlight, fire, stove, or anything else. But let's assume that it is a photo of something in the night sky. What could it potentially be depicting? I can think of a few possibilities. A rocket, a piece of a rocket, man-made space debris during re-entry, a crashing aircraft, or perhaps a meteor. None of which would be too surprising given that this is the Soviet Union in the middle of the Cold War as well as the space race, so there would have been a lot of aerial activity. At the time when space exploration was about as fresh as a prince living in an affluent LA neighborhood, it's not surprising that people were unable to identify the mysterious lights. Regardless, it could not have landed close to the hikers as it would have been found by the search teams. And if the object had already been recovered...
Why do you keep fucking spamming this? Last story was Nightblood. Valentina had Nightblood and she didn't die from radiation. What the fuck is Nightblood? What the fuck are you talking about? Is you like a CW show or something? What is Nightblood? You've been spamming that for almost 40 minutes now since we finished that. And Valentina never died. It's actually fanfic. You have been spamming about fanfic. Is this your fanfic? Well, that was a good waste of time.
Could have been evidence in the form of a crash site, footprints, and other activity on the ground. So, given the fact that there is no obvious connection between the UFO and the hiker's disappearance, I put this in the spooky red herring box. So, what happened? Why did they leave the tent? Why was it slashed open from the inside? How did some of them sustain such major injuries while the others simply succumbed to the cold? Why were so many of them underdressed?
Avalanche.
I think the biggest mystery is how it's been able to remain a mystery given the abundance of information. So after spending the better part of this month hiring multiple Russian translators reading through a massive amount of material ranging from theories about a KGB cover-up to a simple avalanche accident, this is what I believe to be the most credible.
Let's see if he gets it right, because there is an explanation now.
First of all, why would they leave the tent? That seems to be the most important missing piece of the puzzle. I would argue that the only thing that could make them leave would have to be an immediate threat inside the tent. If something was outside, such as an animal or a UFO, then there would be no reason to cut the tent open. There were no signs of an avalanche, however, they could have escaped believing an avalanche was tumbling towards them. The problem with that theory is that the footprints show them walking in a calm and orderly manner down the slope, as opposed to running away in panic. So something caused them to panic inside the tent, but once outside, they calmed down and made a conscious decision to walk down the slope. Now, take a look at this photo. The pipe sticking out of the tent entrance is the exhaust pipe of the internal stove. This was a completely unique and homemade design as the leader of the group had built the stove himself. We know they had used the stove on the night of the incident before the incident took place, as partially eaten pieces of fried ham and bacon were found inside the tent.
I think that after disassembling the stove and removing the exhaust pipe, the embers inside the stove were accidentally reignited. If the exhaust pipe had been removed, the smoke would have filled the tent in seconds. As they attempted to get control of the flame, they cut a few holes at the top of the tent to vent the smoke.
Damn, this guy's a
That
genius.
didn't work and it became increasingly difficult to breathe. The side of the tent was slashed open and they all escaped in a state of panic. There's even more evidence to support this theory. Several members of the group were found with burn marks on both their bodies and
Hold on, just in case they show bodies, not gonna risk it.
which could definitely have been a result of the improvised fire under the tree, or perhaps a scalding hot metal stove. Some of them were also found with blood around their mouth, and coughing up blood could be a symptom of smoke inhalation. Then there's this photo, taken the day before the incident. The jacket has obviously been burned, but the question is how? It's possible that sparks from the stove had accidentally set the jacket aflame. Okay, so they make it outside and quickly realize what a terrible situation
Thanks to
they're
give
in.
some Shane and the big
Sub-zero
2-2 Kid
temperatures,
Freud.
no shelter, underdressed, in the middle of a snowstorm, in the middle of the night, in the middle of nowhere. At
Happy
this point,
21st
I think
birthday,
one or
take a
more
hint.
of them made a decision to
Happy
head for
birthday.
the nearest shelter, which they would have known to be the woods. The reasoning behind this decision is likely multifaceted. The smoke from the tent could have made it impossible to stay within its proximity, and/or the smoke may have caused them to believe that the tent was on fire. Some of them were intoxicated, which could have affected their judgment as well as their sensibility to the cold. And they may also have believed to be closer to the woods than they actually were. So they finally reached the woods and immediately set out to make a fire. Some climbed a tree and scavenged the surrounding area, while those who are more properly dressed head a bit deeper into the woods.
Thanks, Richard
About
Patty Mayo.
75 meters from the tree, 4 of them trigger a minor avalanche, taking them over the edge of a ravine with a drop of about 3 meters. As the bottom is filled
Just in
with
case.
rocks and ice, they sustain lethal injuries. 3 of the other 5 hikers decide to head back for the tent, while the remaining 2 slowly freeze to death around a fading flame.
So, that theory makes a ton of sense, and I haven't kept up with the Dyatlov discoveries here, but like I said, I remembered recently there was a huge resurgence in information and explanations for this, so let me just check to make sure there's no pictures of bodies. I just ripped some good ass in case you heard that. Okay, this looks good. So this comes from Smithsonian Mag. Thanks to the resub raw. Can't say I've done that before, dried pickle. Thanks to the resub bravo. Alright, let's see. This is just an overview. Oh, here we go. An abominable snowman attack. That seems like a cool theory. We do not claim to have solved the Dyatlov Pass mystery, as no one survived to tell the story. That's just what a man who solved the mystery would say, being very coy. But we show the plausibility of the avalanche hypothesis. An avalanche, a snow slab, or a hurricane. Thanks to Tier 1 Zion and Prime Huso. Official findings suggested a torrent of snow slabs or blocky chunks surprised the sleeping victims and pushed them to seek shelter at a nearby ridge. Unable to see more than 50 feet ahead, the hikers froze to death as they attempted to make their way back to their tent. Critics of the slab avalanche theory cite 4 main counter-arguments. the lack of physical traces of an avalanche, more than 9-hour gap between the hikers building their camp, a process that required cutting into the mountain to form a barrier against the wind, and their panicked departure, the shallow slope of the campsite, and the traumatic injuries sustained by the group. Asphyxiation is more common cause of death for avalanche victims. Okay. So this guy proved that a snow slab could have wiped through the area without leaving many traces. A slab avalanche, excuse me. Alright. Jesus, they really went in on this. Got a whole little fucking graph. Well, not graph, a whole little picture. Researchers unraveled the final piece of the puzzle, the hiker's unexplained injuries, with the help of a surprising source, Disney's 2013 film Frozen. I'm starting to doubt how accurate this conclusion may be. If Elsa did it, but I'll continue. He was so impressed by the movie's depiction of snow that he asked his creators to share their animation code with him. This simulation tool, coupled with data from cadaver tests conducted by General Motors in 1970 to determine what would happen to the human body when struck at different speeds, enabled the pair to show that heavy blocks of solid snow could have landed on the hikers as they slept, crushing their bones and causing injuries not typically associated with avalanches. If this was the case, the pair posits those who had sustained less serious blows likely dragged their injured companions out of the tent in the hopes of saving their lives. Okay. Next, the resub remark. The slabs of snow would have had to be incredibly stiff and moving at a significant speed to inflict such violent injuries. He adds that the research doesn't explain why these people, after being hit by an avalanche, ran off without their clothes into the snow. True. If you're in that type of harsh environment, it's suicide to leave shelter without your clothes on. True. For people to do that, they must have been terrified by something, and I assume one of the most likely things is one of them went crazy for some reason. Can't understand why else they would have behaved in that way unless they were trying to flee from someone who's been tracking them. I mean, yeah, I guess that really wasn't as conclusive as I thought it would be. Thanks to Prime Darko and Resub Prime. Oh, DB Cooper. Yes, I didn't even think of that. Maybe it was DB Cooper. Don't know if I've seen that one yet either, to be honest, LEMMiNO's theory actually sounds more plausible. This, I'm doubting that one now. Let me just double check there's no bodies here. Now I'm interested. Yeah, no bodies. Is it not just hypothermic psychosis? Well, no, because it all happened while they were in their tents warm, supposedly. They cut out of the tent and all took off into the night. They wouldn't be suffering from hypothermia inside with a stove and clothing and everything. That really wouldn't add up. Oh no, this one also talks about slab avalanche. And it also cites Frozen. Yeah, I don't know. Who knows? That is very interesting. Very interesting indeed.
We are going to do a psychic brain massage.
Well, fucking do it then, pussy. Oh my. Oh my. Oh my. I'm expecting any minute now for him to like chug a fifth of vodka and just say shoe nice or something.
Can you feel?
Oh, 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 oh. Ooh.
Feel me pulling.
Shit, he's powerful. God damn. Ooh, wait. Hey, whoa, be nice to the psyche.
We can connect.
Yes, please. Let's connect. That's what I want. Oh.
From your mind.
Oh, whoa.
In out.
Wow.
Your brain.
Oh, yes. Pet it, please. Wonderful. That felt great.
Had the misfortune to handle this incorrectly, you would most certainly have a painful and horrible death.
What?
Sadly, this subject has been covered before by someone I know.
Uranium.
But I found this story really interesting and I had to do a video about it.
Plutonium?
This
Fuck!
video.
Son of a
Like
bitch.
many of my atomic videos, our story starts during the Second
Things a
World
bit
War
spicy.
and the Manhattan Project. The Demon Core, or Rufus as it was originally nicknamed, was intended to be used in a third atomic bomb to be dropped on Japan. It was designed to be 5% below critical mass.
So this doesn't seem
leaving
like
the
super
core
interesting though.
somewhat
Like
safe. However,
we know now how
5%
dangerous
was
plutonium
to
is.
ensure that when needed, it could be used to make a very large explosion easily.
Seems like a really comprehensive lesson into the dangers of plutonium, but yeah, I was expecting like some wild shit. But I mean, it's a good sport. I certainly have no problem with shin kicking. When do they? There it is. The danger to the sack is really high in this sport, but I'm pretty sure they wear a cup.
So the Harvard Globeheads debunked their model yesterday.
You're not testing on a ball, guys. The Earth is flat.
Oh shit! Wait, is this serious or no?
We're gonna put one magnet here in California. Seriously, I'm about to lose it. I'm getting pissed.
I don't know how you're gonna take a 1 mile piece
of toilet paper and hit space.
God damn it.
I thought he was gonna die, dude. I literally thought he was gonna die.
Wow.
I thought you...
Holy shit.
They're a complete shock.
I thought it was an actual flat earther thing.
You can't write that stuff, guys. I'm just having my freaking world rocked.
Shut the fuck up!
It's everything.
This looks very high effort though, wow.
Right. And I've always been right. You guys get it? You guys fucking get it?
Damn, the amount of effort that seems to have gone into that is wild. It says parody? What, where? Oh, god damn it! Well, I mean, I think it was pretty clear. But, yeah, I should have just seen this right away and not got excited.
So the Harvard Globeheads.
Phase Rug Gatorade in Windex bottle prank? Tell me if it's fake or not? Alright, I don't have to watch it, I can tell you it's fake. Phase Rug is in the fucking title. What do you mean? I'll watch it for a couple seconds just to confirm, make sure I'm on the right track here. I don't want to be wrong. But I can tell you it's definitely fake.
What's going on, guys? FaZe Rug. I know her reaction is gonna be funny. It's gonna be so fun to do, and oh god, I'm actually scared to do this. And I'm gonna ask her if she needed help cleaning.
That's nice of you. Got something? Did you really fucking drink him now and that? Come on, you should look.
It looks. My mom got so scared.
You were on.
It's fake. That's probably enough FaZe Rug's content for the whole year, in fact. We just reached the limit. Watch the Glico-Morinaga Incident, Japan's greatest unsolved mystery.
Explore the Glico-Morinaga case and its perpetrator, the monster with 21.
That's a cool title, I'm in.
Izaki legacy, but nothing could have prepared him for the night of March 18th, 1984, or the subsequent nightmare that would last nearly a year and a half after that. At approximately, the two men first happened upon Mrs. Izaki and one of the couple's 3 children.
This is not what I was expecting
at
all here.
Bound. Meanwhile, Katsuhisa, hearing the commotion, tried to remain unnoticed in the nearby bathroom with his 2 other children, but his efforts were ultimately in vain. But wait. A ransom request was made the very next morning, with the unidentified assailants asking for the equivalent of $4.3 million, along with 220 pounds of gold.
Damn!
A staggering amount for anyone, but one that would ultimately never have to be paid. Just 3 days later, Katsuhisa managed to escape completely unharmed, revealing to both police and the public that he'd been held in a warehouse in nearby Ibaraki City, not far from his own company's headquarters. Puzzlingly enough, the CEO also claimed that he managed to finally escape because he, for some reason, had been left unmonitored. Almost a month after the taking of Katsuhisa Izaki, more bizarre events began to unfold for Glico. On April 10th, a number of vehicles outside the company HQ were inexplicably set on fire in a suspected arson case.
What the fuck is going on with Glico?
A week later,
Jesus,
a container
they're
full of
haunted.
hydrochloric acid was located in one of Glico's buildings. Both Glico and local Osaka media received letters claiming that cyanide-laced packs of the company's candy would be placed on store shelves. The letters signed by a person or group choosing
Damn,
to
this
be
is like the
called
actual
the
Zodiac killer.
Monster
Like,
with 21
he must have fled the States and then went
The
here
name
to
many
torment the
assumed
chocolate
was
guy.
taken from the works of mystery writer
Glico and the
Rampo
Chocolate
Edogawa,
Factory.
specifically a character known as the Monster or Fiend with 20 faces. It goes without saying that what happened next here was mass panic, and of course for good reason.
It's
Now, despite all the
Arasaka.
damage, however,
Yeah,
no poison
what it
candies
is.
were actually found. Meanwhile, investigators were scrambling to crack the case, but the so-called Monster with 21 Faces was slippery, and they knew it. As this was all going on, the letters did not stop. Many that were sent to the media were addressed directly to Japanese police, who the monster described as stupid and incompetent.
Oh, hey,
The
that's
monster was
hey,
so
let's not be
confident,
rude.
or
What the
perhaps
fuck?
frustrated with police,
They're doing
that
their best.
the vehicle was gray and that they'd entered Glico's factory via the front gate in order to plant the container filled with acid, which they
That's gotta be
claimed
embarrassing.
was originally street garbage. The letters themselves...
Imagine being so
contained a
incompetent at your
defining
job that the
characteristic
criminals
of
you're
this
trying to catch are
case.
just openly
But
giving you
even
hints
with
to
how
make it more
frequent
fun
they
for them.
were, they
Because you
didn't
can't figure
offer
it out on
any
your own.
solid clues as to the monster's identity, aside from the fact that they seemed local based on the dialect that was used. There did, however, appear to be one possible break in the case after Glico's products had been recalled.
Oh!
This man was spotted on CCTV, seemingly placing something onto a store shelf.
We got him!
It is a bit difficult to make out, but the man here is wearing a business suit and glasses, along with a Tokyo Yomiuri Giants baseball cap.
Oh, I actually
To this
thought that was a
day,
New York
this remains
Yankees
the
cap for a
only
second, I'm
piece
not
of
gonna
actual
lie.
footage associated with this case. But whoever is depicted in it, the so-called videotaped man, has never been identified or even formally connected to the person or group who calls themselves the Monster with 21 Faces. On June 26, at the height of all the chaos and confusion, something even more bizarre took place.
Oh god.
Another letter had turned up, but this time
But this time it was a love
seemingly
letter.
claimed that the monster was done with Glico. The note, addressed to the people of Japan, said the president of Glico has already gone around with his head hanging down long enough. We would like to forgive him. Japan has gotten terribly hot and humid, so when our work is done...
Yeah, maybe
we
I'll
want to
check
go
that one
to
out next,
Europe,
Raiden.
Geneva, Paris, London. We'll be in one of those places. Let's bring Pocky, the traveler's friend. Delicious Glico products. We're eating them too. See you in January of next year. And it even came without any money being exchanged. This, of course, would seem
Yeah, they haven't
ultimately
made a single
bizarre and
fucking
a
dime
waste
from
of
this
time
shit.
If not for the fact that the monster really hadn't stopped at all. In fact, it had already started targeting other brands, including one Marudai food company, with much the same tactics it had already used with Glico. Once again, ransom was demanded in exchange for peace, and unlike Glico, Marudai was ready to comply.
Oh, no.
But with a catch. On June 28th, just 2 days after the
Why
monster
comply? They
announced
clearly
an
just
end
gave
to
up
its
last
obsession
time.
with Glico, said man was described as having a larger build, short hair, glasses, and most notably, eyes said to resemble those of a fox. The
What?
undercover cop was
So
instructed
you sent a
to keep
cop
an
that was
eye out
high.
for a white flag, the signal to drop the money, but since that flag never appeared, the cop continued on the route until its eventual end in Kyoto. He was only there long enough to hop on the next available train back to Osaka, and sure enough, the fox-eyed man boarded the exact same train. This time, the monster wasn't bluffing. Several packs of Morinaga products were found with additional labels on them reading "Danger contains poison," signed "The Monster with 21 Faces." In response, a staggering 40,000 Japanese police officers were set to watch over
get rid of the surprise by saying that.
Stores. In August of 1985, things were still at a standstill, and the Japanese public were furious with law enforcement's perceived
Appreciate it, Giggle. Thank you. And
the
yeah,
pressure
GTRP
was
is always
too
fun.
much for one man in particular who had worked on the case. Superintendent Shoji Yamamoto, who, tragically out of shame, set himself on fire and would ultimately pass away.
What?
The monster, meanwhile, had been watching...
What? This is like literally an anime plot. The fucking detective was so ashamed he couldn't catch the guy that he lit himself on fucking fire? This is probably what he looked like when he was burning alive too, just so fucking stoic about it. Like, yeah, I'm burning alive, what is it? What of it? Huh, pussy? My god! What? Bro, like over here, the fucking lead detective on a case probably thinks about it 10 minutes out of his day. And meanwhile, this guy was so consumed by it and so disappointed he couldn't crack it, he lit himself on fucking fire.
We decided to give our condolences. We decided to forget about torturing food-making companies. If anyone blackmails any of the food-making companies, it's not us, but someone copying us. We are bad guys. That means we've got more to do other than bullying companies.
Kind of a lame note, not gonna lie, kind of lame.
But even so, people were still left with no answers, no real reason
Wait,
for why all this...
So, this is fucking crazy. So the guy lit himself on fire, and that was such a profound statement that the criminals just stopped. So this guy, like, he must have seen the strings that attached everything. He must have cracked the fucking code. By lighting himself on fire, he solved the case, but he lit himself on fire because he couldn't solve it. So the act of the self-immolation ultimately solved the case. This is crazy. And there, man, what a story. And the criminals also had so much honor that they respected him so much that they just quit.
It almost comes off like the monster with 21 faces didn't actually want to hurt anyone or even make money for that matter. Why place labels on tainted goods? Why not actually collect on the money? Why leave the CEO unmonitored, which allowed for his escape? That we don't know of. In the end, we're never going to know what the monster really wanted. Was it to make a point to society or to play out his very own detective fantasy in real life? The answers remain unclear, but what's troubling to think about is that the monster with 21 faces could still be alive today, and much like the Fiend, the monster remains unseen. Thank you.
That was great, but what an I can't help but feel like it's all wasted. So like the team behind the monster with 21 condoms, like they did something crazy. Like, they did something nuts, and no one will ever know who it was. So that group, or that maybe one person, they can never fucking brag about it. They can never be like, I'm a genius. Like, this guy probably sits at the dinner table with his family or his friends, he's like, yeah, I'm fucking smart as shit. And then he can never prove it. Because he can't just be like, yeah, I'm the monster with 21 faces or whatever. Such a waste. You did something nuts and no one will ever know. Except you. You yourself are the only one that will know. Shame. You watched the latest LEMMiNO video? Not yet. Actually, was planning on it, but then didn't last YouTube. This is about the Great Filter, right? It's not about the Great Filter. Oh, it's the Fermi Paradox for this one. Okay.
In the spring of 1806, two German astronomers were independently observing Venus when they noticed something odd.
Giant-titted aliens.
The hemisphere facing away from the sun did not perfectly blend with the blackness of space. Instead, it had a faint glow with a grayish-red or ashen-gray appearance. This ashen light resembled a phenomenon known as earthshine. It's when sunlight reflected by the earth faintly illuminates the night side of the moon. It seemed reasonable, therefore, to ascribe the ashen light to a similar cause, namely that sunlight reflected by a Venusian moon was faintly illuminating the night side of Venus. Only, One slight problem: Venus doesn't have.
Oh, it was an invisible spaceship.
This meant the
Activated
ashen
cloaking
light
tech.
resembled Earth shine in appearance only because there was nothing in proximity of Venus to reflect any sunlight.
Yeah, LEMMiNO
In
is
the words
amazing.
of famed astronomer William Herschel, those regions that are turned from the sun cannot possibly shine by a borrowed light. A few decades later,
I'll check it out.
another
but
German
not on
astronomer,
stream.
Franz von Gröthausen, proposed a rather creative solution to this mystery. The
Blow up
ashen
the
light
Venus.
was the result of sweeping wildfires on the surface of Venus, deliberately ignited by its inhabitants.
Oh.
He believed that Venus was inhabited by a humanoid species who would periodically light fires on the surface.
What an interesting
the purpose
theory.
of which was either to clear land, to commemorate a religious occasion,
Yeah.
or to celebrate the coronation.
Apparently we've been getting
of a
dumber
new
because of
Venusian
lead, but look at where we came from. Fucking
Gröthausen did
idiots.
perhaps get a bit carried away, but he was far from the first to suggest that Venus was inhabited. Titans of astronomy like Christian Huygens and William Herschel envisioned all the planets, including Venus, to be teeming with life. And it took a
Here's
long
Prime
time
Lucama,
for
the
this
Receipt Karma.
romanticized image to fade. In 1916, this illustration appeared in American newspapers with the caption, "A remarkable drawing by Mr. Winsor McKay, illustrating the conditions of Venus as astronomical science now believes."
There were actually people on.
Even well into the space age, we still find echoes of
Planet-wide
this
exodus.
earth-like perception.
They
In
realized Huygens was
1967, a
onto them.
Soviet spacecraft plunged into the clouds of Venus to attempt a landing on its surface. While the probe did not survive the descent,
Maybe
it
Prime
was
Julian.
actually designed to float in case of a water landing. History is ripe with stories much like this one, largely forgotten stories that once upon a time promised to end our cosmic solitude. Lowell, far from the diffused shadings
That is a
reported
cool
by
name.
his
First of all,
peers,
great name.
Lowell could discern a distinctive network of branching spokes. It is as if a bright veil of some sort were drawn over the whole disk. These spokes of Venus bore a striking resemblance to markings observed on both Mercury and Mars. The features on Mars were especially distinct and remarkably linear.
So someone was graffitiing them.
Lowell had been somewhat unimpressed by the spokes on Venus, but he became nothing short of obsessed with lineae on Mars. There are celestial sights more dazzling, spectacles
we're
that
in
inspire
Texas.
more awe, but to the thoughtful observer who is privileged to see them well, there is nothing in the sky so profoundly impressive as these canals of Mars. Owing to their striking linearity, Lowell could reach but one conclusion: the Martian canals must be the workings of an intelligence. He carefully laid out his arguments in 3 lengthy books filled with these intricate
Oh, he was
maps
a
and
scam
illustrations.
artist.
The Martian canals represented a vast irrigation
Yeah, he's
network
the original
designed to
L. Ron
carry
Hubbard.
melted ice water from the poles.
Man tried to make
down
early
to the equator.
Scientology. Yeah.
While many were understandably skeptical, the idea that Mars could be inhabited was an extremely compelling one, perhaps even more so than Venus. Legendary science fiction author H.G. Wells famously wrote The War of the Worlds,
I know
a fictional
that one.
story about the Martian invasion of Earth, first published in 1897. But a decade later, Wells published a speculative non-fiction article titled The Things That Live on Mars. Inspired by Lowell's fanciful interpretations, Wells goes on to envision the habitat, society, and appearance of real Mars.
Man, you fucking dumb. You think the aliens would look like this using what is this?
Does that one alien have like little flowers in her hair?
Yeah, I guess.
Cute girl, love the accessories.
They look like fucking sea monkeys. Like, there's no chance these guys would
Is
ever.
that their magic carpet? Is that how they get around?
I don't know. God only knows. I'm more interested in all like the weird tech. So they have water wheels, but also like these giant mega structures. So they're all over the place, honestly.
To
Exit
Wells
Prime,
and many others,
nerd.
the existence of Martians was not just possible, it was probable. Indeed, to some, it had already attained a veneer of truth. In 1891,
old
the
alien
French
things.
Academy, it had
It's like an
already
elephant in
attained
a
a
suit.
veneer of truth. In 1891, the French Academy of Sciences was bequeathed a sum of 100,000 francs by a wealthy Parisian widow. The money was to be awarded to the first person who found the means of communicating with another planet, with the notable exception of Mars, implying that communicating with Martians would have been far too simple of a challenge.
That's awesome.
Indeed, maps of the Red Planet published by the US military that very same year featured sprawling networks of canals.
Man, we're really blasting through the timeline here.
The alien factor.
Alien factor?
A towering Atlas Agena rocket is the launch vehicle that hurtles the Mariner into the heavens. Scientific apparatus on the Mariner will try to measure the density of the planet's atmosphere, and a television camera will seek to make photographs of its surface, giving man his first close-up look at Mars.
The American spacecraft Mariner 4 transmitted the first close-up photographs of the Martian surface in the summer of 1965.
Boo, Mars is boring.
Despite the complete absence of any linear markings, scientists at NASA were unwilling to give up hope. Nothing positive concerning the existence or lack of canals can be concluded on the basis of the Mariner 4 photographs. I mean, look at this. Not only is there a clear correlation between this sketch and this photograph of Mars, but you can almost see these barely perceptible lines snaking across the plains.
But what does that all mean?
The spokes on Venus, meanwhile, bear a curious resemblance to the inside of an eye. It appears that Lowell constrained the aperture of his telescope to such an extreme that the blood vessels inside his eye began to cast shadows,
I guess if it
some
had, like,
of which might have fallen onto Lowell's retina, creating the illusion of labyrinthine markings on distant worlds. It is as if a bright veil of some sort were drawn over the whole disk.
What does this mean for the trout population? Good question.
Whether it was optical illusions, indistinct shadings on the planets, turbulence in the atmosphere, technological limitations, or an untempered willingness to believe, these networks of lines were merely figments of the mind. There is something incredibly tragic about these old misconceptions.
That they were
there
wrong.
was a time not so long ago when life beyond meant life right next door. There's still hope of finding less complex forms of life on a select few planets and moons, which is very exciting, but also a far cry from a tropical Venus or an Ecumenopolis on Mars. As our knowledge of the universe continues
I think it'd be
to
so
expand,
underwhelming if all
so
we
too
found was
must
like
our
a small
search
little
for
bacteria
cosmic neighbors.
out in space. Can't even talk to it. Wouldn't even speak English.
By the mid-20th century, the Asian light had been observed by not dozens, but hundreds of observers, many of whom were as experienced as they were adamant of the phenomenon's existence. Despite this preponderance of eyewitness accounts, the lack of any empirical evidence attracted a fair amount of skepticism. In early 1643...
Holy shit, this... God damn it, it just scrolled up. Holy shit, this video is far off. How can people publish these lies? It's literally a history lesson. What do you mean? What do you think happened in history, I guess? What lies? That's a genuine question. I'm super curious. Because it's not like he's giving any, takes or anything or misrepresenting it. It is literally the history of how astronomers once viewed Venus and the theories that came along with it. And he even cites the sources in the video. Even, let's say in, a far-off possibility that everything outside of Earth is CGI, it still wouldn't change that there's nothing being lied about in this video. It is still just a history lesson of what the astronomers were saying and how they arrived there. The history is cool, but the talk about aliens is far off, and we all know this. He was saying what the astronomers said. What are you talking about?
Exactly what an alien would say.
What the fuck? He was just saying, the astronomers believed that it was probable that there were aliens on Venus or Mars due to them seeing the ashen light as well as canals. Keep in mind, these are 200-year-old people. These are primitive. They're not as smart as you with the C+ and AP biology or whatever, but he's just going over, where it came from. Did you mean, okay, maybe I misunderstood. It's fucking 5 a.m. Maybe I do you mean the video creator, LEMMiNO, or do you mean the old-timey people? Because maybe there's a disconnect. I thought you're talking about LEMMiNO, but maybe you're talking about primitive man. The astronomers have learned over the years most of the stuff they learned wasn't correct. I enjoy the history of the video creator, sorry. Even more, yeah, I don't know. Old humans are dumb. Agreed. They don't even have Google, like fucking virgins.
Ritually witnessed a band of colors enveloping the disk of Venus. The night side was tinted greenish blue enclosed by a semicircle of light. Ritually ascribed the vivid colors to light being refracted inside his telescope, an effect known as chromatic aberration. In other words, Ritually thought the faint glow on Venus was an optical illusion. Okay, so a quick aside, I managed to find an observation that to my knowledge has gone completely unnoticed and actually predates the one made by Ritually. A German priest and scholar named Athanasius Kircher wrote in 1660 that he too had observed a band of colors on Venus. No date was given, but Kircher did provide a location, Palermo, Sicily. Based on historical records, Kircher paid his last and only visit to Palermo in the spring of 1638. So Kircher observed the ashen light 5 years before Ritually and should thus be credited with its discovery. Okay, back to the video. Ritually's doubts about the ashen light echo
rewrote history.
And
By
the 1900s, it was not uncommon for sightings to be dismissed as a mere trick of the eye, with no hard proof of its existence.
I can beat up these guys in a fight.
Between those who had seen it,
no shot. These old
to join the ranks
primitive
of myth
men were built for combat. Pugilists.
But in 1975, the Soviet spacecraft Venera 9 became the first to successfully orbit Venus. Diving into the shadow of this faded twin, he detected faint flashes of light emanating from the clouds below.
What's going on down there?
It's just gonna be aliens, I bet.
Venus and Mars have historically been the two prime candidates for cosmic neighbors, but the other planets have not gone completely ignored. Scottish astronomer James Ferguson had few reservations about life in the solar system. When it came to Mercury, for instance, Ferguson thought that Mercurians simply possessed greater resilience to heat. It is very likely that the people on Mercury have the same opinion of us as we have of the inhabitants of Jupiter and Saturn, namely that we must be intolerably cold and have very little light at so great a distance.
If only you knew, Fergie.
Inspired by Ferguson's optimism, William Herschel took it a step further. In 1795, Herschel confidently announced that the inside of the sun was home to an alien civilization. This might seem incredibly bizarre, but at the time it was
like
not uncommon to view the sun as an enormous planet encased by a luminous atmosphere. Herschel expanded upon that idea by regarding sunspots as openings in this flaming shell that momentarily exposed the true surface underneath. This concealed surface was richly stored with inhabitants who were shielded against the immense heat by intermediate layers of clouds. We have great reason to look upon the sun as the most magnificent habitable globe.
What's crazy to me is that these old primitive theories are somehow less crazy than the modern ones from people
like
that...
flat earthers and stuff?
Yeah, it's fucking wild. Like, the conspiracies that we come up with now blow these old ones out of the water despite the people having no reason to believe like any of it was not plausible.
I told you about that time I interviewed the guy who believed aliens lived on the moon. Up in like near Aberdeen, Scotland.
No, I don't think he said that.
He literally would take pictures from like, you know how there's like Google Earth?
Yeah.
Google Moon images. Take a screenshot, put it in Photoshop and use the high pass filter on it, which basically turns the entire image to all gray and then finds the edges. Right? And then he would take that, do the high pass filter on it like 6 or 7 times so it would create like really hard edges and be like, do you see this? This is a map of the underground. Like you can't see it unless you use this filter. And I wanted to be like, oh my God. But we were so scared we were going to die if we didn't finish the interview because the guy was a whack job. But we sat there for like 2 hours listening to this guy and it was... Yeah, you're right. People have some pretty interesting theories.
Maybe he was right, though. We haven't really checked for, like, underground railroad systems on the moon yet.
Whereas you and I see a barren landscape devoid of life, Hevelius spied upon the moon a near perfect copy of Earth. Mountains and valleys, rivers and lakes, swamplands and woodlands, islands and capes. This vivid interpretation
Photoshop
an
is far
ancient
more
belief
reliable.
that bright and dark patches delineate continents from oceans. In fact, this fallacy is still reflected in the nomenclature we use today. Dark plains on the moon all have aquatic names, such as the Ocean of Storms, the Lake of Dreams, and the Sea of Tranquility.
Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
Though water never filled these gloomy basins, it's not entirely inaccurate to call them ancient seabeds, for they are the volcanic scars left behind by vast oceans of molten rock, making the Lake of Death.
How can you
an
explore
especially
other galaxies
apt
but
name.
can't explore the rest of the ocean?
While Hevelius never observed any creatures on the moon,
aliens
its
are in the
subjective resemblance to the
That's
Earth
for sure.
convinced him that
I always
Lemurians
liked that
must
idea in
exist.
Pacific Rim that
A
in the
conviction
deep
still
ocean
being
there's just
upheld more than a
fucking
century
aliens.
later by who else if not William Herschel.
I mean, just-
Herschel nearly convinced himself that the cratered landscape of the moon had been engineered by its inhabitants. Craters or circuses were not the remnants of violent impact events, but skillfully constructed towns and cities. While Herschel obsessed over circular dwellings, astronomers like Franz von Roentgen espied habitats of all shapes and
I thought you were
sizes.
about to try and say it.
This
No, he said
star-like
it. It
structure
sounded awesome.
appears to be a
Franz von
kind of
Roentgen.
temple, and because of its star shape,
Fucking
perhaps
awesome.
it is dedicated in service to the stars. The circle in the south, the two highest mountains in the north, and the two hills in the southwest are natural objects, but it is highly probable that these embankments serve as the dwellings of
Elusive beauty.
sentient beings on the moon. In reality, Roentgen mistook some oddly shaped terrain for intelligent design.
Oh.
The increasingly speculative nature of these extraordinary claims
Mistake that could
culminated
happen
in
to
a
anyone.
truly incredible sighting by John Herschel, the son of William Herschel. Whilst gazing upon a rock formation on the moon, we were thrilled with astonishment to perceive 4 successive flocks of large winged creatures. They were like human beings. Their wings possessed great expansion and were similar in structure to those of the bat.
So he just
The moon was
fucking-
evidently home
he's just
to a
lying.
species of
Now he's just
walking
lying.
and flying man-bats. This was a truly profound, if not bemusing, discovery, not just for the world, but also for John Herschel. Because upon being inquired about this remarkable find,
Those look like the monkeys
John
from
responded
Mr.
with
Bob.
confusion. He had no knowledge of any
Jesus Christ.
man-bats on the moon. It turns out the story had been fabricated by an American journalist named Richard Locke. Locke had sought to lampoon the often frivolous debate about life in other worlds, perpetuated by the likes of William Herschel and Franz von Roentgen. Instead, the great moon hoax of 1835 convinced thousands around the world that the moon was inhabited by bat-like humanoids, unicorned bison, bipedal beavers, as well as, well, storks
Yeah.
and goats. There's also this image of a man-bat besat the flat upon the back of a fellow man-bat televacked by a pack of man-bats. As to why this guy is copping a whiff, history has declined to answer.
I don't know. It's a pretty cool fucking picture, though. I wish those aliens were on the moon. Bro, if those aliens were on the moon, there'd
As
be
time
no
went on
doubt
and
people would be
telescopes
just like
improved, it became
killing them
increasingly difficult
relentlessly.
to argue in
Just
favor
because they
of the
don't
moon's
like the way they
habitability.
look.
With
fucking
no
sniffing
apparent
buttholes and
atmosphere,
shit.
this dry and barren wasteland seemed an improbable abode for life as we know it. But by the mid-19th century, the life debate had been resurrected by a new hypothesis about the shape of the moon. The argument was that gravitational forces had stretched the moon into the shape of an egg. This uneven distribution of mass meant that any atmosphere or fluids would have coalesced on whichever side was closer to the center of gravity. If that happened to be the far side of the moon, an argument could be made for its habitability. As one author put it, though the near hemisphere is a lifeless desert, having neither water nor air to sustain life, the hidden hemisphere may have a teeming population. Among the proponents of this
And he
radical
was
hypothesis
right.
was none other than John Herschel. An egg shape would fully account for the total absence both of air and of water on the side of the moon turned towards us, and would be quite compatible with the abundant existence
You
of both
gain
and of a
immunity
habitable
from
hemisphere
shit by
on the
licking
opposite side.
ass.
Ew.
Had history played out differently? perhaps we'd be dealing with egg mooners instead of flat earthers
you lick,
at this
the
point.
less
No, but that's
hurt you
lunacy.
are by
Okay.
shit,
While skeptics made quick work of the egg-shaped moon hypothesis, far side inhabitants could not be so easily dismissed. After all, the far side of the moon is unseeable from Earth, and thus ripe for speculation.
So then I subjected them to a spectrographic analysis. It's dust. A great amount of radioactive dust.
Larry, what you're saying is that somehow, for some reason, the moon has been encircled by a ring of highly radioactive dust?
Something's going on the other side of the moon, the invisible side.
This is
something that we ought to know about.
By placing aliens on the far side of the moon, early science fiction authors were able to skirt the line of plausibility.
Oh, you're talking about Moonfall.
To conceal their presence and perhaps observe humanity from a distance, this cosmic blind spot was the perfect hiding place. At least that was the opinion of famed American astronomer Carl Sagan. It is not out of the question that artifacts or even some kind of base is maintained within the solar system.
Did he really say that? That doesn't
Humanity
seem
got
like
its
anything you would
first
ever
glimpse
believe.
of the far side of the moon in late 1959, when the Soviet spacecraft Luna 3 relayed these images back to mission control. Subsequent
Moon
missions
is just
improved
hiding
upon
her
the quality,
pussy on the other side.
but alas, revealed nothing but more moon. But this idea of concealment lingers to this day. Many are still holding out hope that somewhere in the solar system, the ruins or technology of some unknown intelligence lie waiting to be found.
God, I hope that's accurate.
In 1988, the Soviet Union launched a probe known as Phobos 2. As the name implies, part of its mission was to investigate the Martian moon, Phobos. The probe arrived at Phobos without any major complications, and in late March of 1989 began preparations to plant 2 instruments onto its surface. But then, contact with Phobos 2 was lost. In the weeks and months that followed, rumors began to circulate. Puzzling features and shadows were said to be visible on some of the final images transmitted by Phobos 2, the nature and origin of which supposedly defied explanation. Through various articles, conferences, and television programs, these images were gradually unveiled to the public. They appear to depict an unidentified craft in orbit around Mars. It was said to be an alien spaceship that had attacked and disabled Phobos 2. Not only that, but it cast an enormous elliptical shadow upon the surface of Mars.
Okay, that's interesting.
The Eye of Sauron, eh?
Но эта тень появилась действительно неожиданно, и что это такое, мы сразу не поняли. И, наверное, не очень хорошо обратили на это внимание, потому что дальше она опять, увидите, продолжается в виде полосы такой.
То есть это не предмет, висящий над поверхностью, а это, видимо, тень все-таки на поверхности планеты?
Наверное. Потому что, то есть это не полностью перекрывает, так сказать, сигнал от поверхности Марса.
Это похоже на ракету, взлетающую из поверхности Марса, и после которой еще остается импрессионный след. Как вы к этому относитесь?
Но если дать волю фантазии, то, конечно, можно найти и такие объяснения. Но мы склонны видеть совершенно реальные, хотя, может быть, еще до конца не объясненные обстоятельства, которые породили вот такой вот след. Скорее всего, это все-таки тень от какого-то объекта на поверхности, потому что сквозь тень просвечиваются элементы поверхности.
Raw data from the Phobos 2 mission became readily accessible. The unidentified craft looked an awful lot like an overexposed transmission artifact. In fact, all the infrared images featured the same white streak.
Yeah. God damn it.
Meanwhile, the elliptical shadow belonged to Phobos. Its elongated shape was due to multiple scans or photographs being taken in sequence before assembling the final image. Stories like the Phobos incident have become rather par for the course. Some initial event or discovery leaves an information vacuum which is immediately filled by fantastical speculation.
Yeah,
A
the
printing
speculation
artifact
is
becomes
always
a tower on the
fantastic.
moon. The happenstance of light and shadow begets a human face on
It's
Mars.
fucking cool.
And these prominent boulders
Super
on both
Panda.
Mars and Phobos conjure images of a certain Stanley Kubrick film. Whether you're
Yeah, what
an
if they're just
amateur
really
or
short
professional,
aliens?
have no experience or decades worth, You're never quite immune to this kind of
It is leaving the
self-deception.
rocks.
When you want something to be true, it can be deceptively easy to convince yourself that it is.
Yeah.
Remember that prize money, the 100,000 francs, offered to anyone who discovered a means of communicating with another planet, excluding Mars. Well, in 1937, there was a claim on that prize. The claimant was none other than world-renowned inventor Nikola Tesla.
He died a virgin.
In 1899,
fucking died
Tesla
a
had been
virgin, what an
experimenting
idiot.
with wireless radio communication.
Stupid fucking virgin.
During some of those experiments, he picked up some rather odd transmissions. Although I could not decipher
Exhibits,
their
Coco.
meaning, the
Sleep well.
feeling is constantly growing in me that I have been the first to hear the greeting of one planet to another. A purpose was behind these electrical signals. Tesla described the signals as a repeating sequence of either 3 or 4 pulses. Decades later, Tesla was still convinced that he'd received an interplanetary message and had even deduced its origin. The signals consisted in a regular repetition of numbers, and subsequent study convinced me that they must have emanated from Mars. I believe the Martians used numbers for communication because numbers are universal. Then, in 1937, Tesla announced his plans to unveil a new technology capable of not just interplanetary but interstellar communication. With such impressive technology at hand, Tesla felt confident that he'd soon be awarded the 100,000 francs. I intend to claim the Pierre Gussman Prize. I am just as sure the prize will be awarded to me as if I already had it in my pocket. They have got to do it. They didn't do it. The prize was instead awarded to the crew of Apollo 11 in 1969. As for the alleged message from Mars, well, we don't really know. While Earth was much quieter back in 1899, it was still far from radio silent.
Wow, that's a cool noise. Shit. That one sucks. It just sounds like wind. Jupiter's cringe. Get off the air. Hate this radio station. Just sounds like footsteps. Boo!
Footsteps. They're coming closer to us.
Yeah, boo. Fuck 'em.
Perhaps it was nothing but the rumbling noise of a distant thunderstorm. Upon sailing into the shadow of Venus in 1975, Venera 9 detected faint flashes of light. The emissions were broadly consistent with lightning, but it's a matter of interpretation. Data gathered by subsequent missions are likewise consistent with Venusian thunderstorms, yet fall short of any conclusive evidence. Presuming that lightning does occur on Venus, could it explain the ashen light?
I don't think it
Well,
could.
it's been
The
estimated
only
that
explanation
the
for
night
the
side of
ashen
Venus
light
would
is
need
a
to maintain a
highly
rate of
advanced
some 1,000 lightning
civilization
strikes
of
per
aliens.
second to yield a glow
Perhaps
that's
even using
visible
Mass
from
Effect
Earth.
relays to
That's more
travel.
than 20 times the mean rate on Earth, and would likely been observed a long
think
time ago.
Hugin was correct
In the blunt words
initially.
of another paper, lightning is not
Or
acceptable
was
as
it
an
Herschel? I don't
explanation
remember.
for the ashen light. But in certain parts of the world, there is another striking phenomenon illuminating the night sky.
Aurora
These
Borealis.
vibrant curtains of light are the result of charged particles ejected by the sun
but it is
colliding with the
cool.
Earth's magnetic field. Could something akin to
Maybe
the
some
northern
starlight.
lights be responsible
Fake. I
for
don't believe
the
it. I
ashen
think that
light?
I've been scammed.
Aurorae have indeed been observed on
It's also
planets like
encouraged
Jupiter
cowardly
and
dogs, so-
Saturn, so
Okay, so maybe
it
it's
might
good.
seem like an obvious solution. What makes it not so obvious is that the magnetic field around Venus is virtually non-existent. It is extremely weak and transient and is generated by a completely different process than here on Earth. In spite of this, when caught in the
recent
path of
Kathy.
a solar storm, Venus has in recent years been observed to glow.
That's fucking awesome.
The underlying mechanism of this glow is still poorly understood, but there is an apparent link between solar activity and diffused emissions of light on the night side of Venus. According to author John Barentine, who's written the definitive book on the subject, the data are inconclusive, but there are hints in this figure that something is indeed up. The apparent spike in the number of ashen light sightings in the 1950s correlates with one of the strongest solar maxima of the past 250 years.
Okay, so we're getting somewhere. As
While all of
Wi-Fi
this
signals
sounds quite
increase, so
promising,
too
it's
does
a bit
the
too
maxima.
early to celebrate. Nothing conclusive has been found, and despite many attempts to do so, the ashen light has never been recorded on camera. Until that happens, this nearly 400-year-old mystery remains in limbo. Should it be ascribed to the atmosphere of Venus or the mind of the observer? Perhaps we should have listened to Giovanni Riccioli from the very beginning. Perhaps it is nothing more than a convincing illusion.
Yeah, I think it's an illusion. I don't believe in anything. Ever.
At all.
The search for cosmic neighbors continues. Many scientists now believe that both Venus and Mars used to resemble Earth in the distant past. Perhaps a relict biosphere or the remnants of a once teeming population can still be found in Venusian clouds or Martian soil. There's mounting evidence that the Jovian moons Europa, Ganymede, and Callisto, along with Enceladus and Titan of Saturn, all host a vast subglacial ocean. Could resilient microbes or even larger organisms have found a way to thrive beneath the frozen crusts? Even if Earth should prove the sole harbor of life within the solar system.
That's something I've looked at. Apparently cryogenic sleep would never work, because even when you're frozen, like you'd never unfreeze successfully. Like all the neurons and shit in your brain would they'd be like brittle and break or something. Yeah. I don't remember exactly what, but they could freeze you. You would just
not resuscitate.
Yeah, you'd never come back. Yes. At least with like current technology.
Yeah.
System, every dot in the night sky has the potential to host another. Always remember that if at first you don't understand, it's definitely aliens.
God, nothing but bangers from LEMMiNO. Yeah, he always does really well done videos. He spends months on them. Yeah, no, he spends a lot of time on them. You need special proteins like frogs have that don't allow ice crystals to form quickly. Those are the ones that fuck you up. Yeah, they like burst all your cells or something, right?
That's interesting. So maybe witches were on something. Frogs, stews, everything.
Maybe. All I know is we're not there yet. Maybe we could find a different way of preserving, like formaldehyde. Just like dumping people in formaldehyde chambers. And they wake up all gooey and yucky but alive. Can we pickle humans? See, someone gets it. I bet with enough dedication and resources, we could find a way to like actually pickle humans. Cryogenic sleep is currently unattainable.
Yeah, what would be the other? So pickling, maybe?
Yeah, pickling, probably.
But pickling means like adding a bunch of salt. Wouldn't that kill you?
No. Like you could just... You could epoxy. You could even use there's a hot dog that's been alive for like 2 years now, trapped in epoxy. I'm sure it'd work the same for a human.
But...
Well, yeah, but that's why with the epoxy, we'll mix in with like ice cubes or something.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So it's not like extreme enough to... Emo nerd smashes his room playing Step Mania. What a title. Sounds like one of those old fake videos. It absolutely is. 12 years ago, this shit is definitely going to be fake. Thanks for your sub, Logan and Aurora. Look up Dude Stop Me, Let Me Go. I'll check it out in a sec. I actually researched this story. It's real. I found the ridge.
Fucking love to do in this monitor. God, like...
Well...
I can't get a comfortable spot for my right hand. At all. Like,
it was like he was a bully throwing the new recruit up against the lockers in the locker room.
The wall behind my fucking computer wasn't broke till I got this monitor. Now it's completely fucked to shit.
Yeah, the monitor really ruined that wall. Oh, speaker's in the way.
Get the fuck out of here.
Okay, yep, get that shit out. The speakers are just being real assholes. There's still a speaker on the desk. Get that shit out. Oh, nice. That should help. There we go.
Oh! Yeah, Look what I did. Oh fucking well.
We have plenty of space to run it, I'd say.
Looks like I'm retired.
Well, I mean, not forever. You can get another monitor. But it might be best if you did completely retire.
Just do that.
For your own mental health and like the safety of
Just
all
like
drywall.
on video. Now I'm permanently playing Setmania. You know, got my fucking life bar, score, made a fire, key setup or some shit. I don't even know what the fuck that is.
Is you enjoying
Shortcuts or now I need a new monitor. Like, I probably shouldn't even play again, because shit like this will just happen again. Like, look, that, fucking, like, the rest of my fucking room. Oh, I should probably fucking quit this game. Look, I fucking put my head through my wall.
It's like a warthog came in here and just went wild. Holy shit. And this is real? Well, I guess, I mean, the holes in the wall. There's definitely a level of self-awareness there. I don't know how he did this one, though. This one's on the ceiling. He must have, like, thrown his monitor up like LeBron James with the chalk before a big game.
Yeah, I'm like, look, that, fucking that.
Hold on, I want to see the other one here.
That, fucking that. That, fucking that.
Ooh.
Fucking, like, the rest of my fucking room. Oh,
How do you even make these tiny holes, the little glory holes? What was he doing, like poking his fingers through it? I guess cords, maybe?
Oh, I should probably fucking quit this game. Look, I fucking put my head through my wall.
You said you researched this and it's real. So, give me the backstory. Now I'm very curious. Scrolled through a shit ton of old Stepmania forums to read about this. He made this video to show how much the game stresses him out, and thankfully he quit for his own well-being. He did eventually come back on Twitch a few years ago though, but yeah, this was real. Yeah, posted to dig and break College Humor and Spike. What a time capsule. Play on Elden Ring Rage? Sure. Well, that's not Rage at all. Okay, what the fuck was that intro?
You gotta think about it logic.
What the fuck? Bro, what a fucking crazy intro. Is that all they do, is compile, like, rage moments? Yeah. Thoughts on Better Call Saul so far? Oh, it's been great. I've been really enjoying Better Call Saul. It lives up to the hype. It's not better than Breaking Bad, though, I'll tell you right now. Let's watch the new Life of Luxury.
It's right for us to get involved with this girl's stalker. Who are you?
Oh, no!
She looked messed up. I think she came from the woods.
Why do you keep bringing up the woods?
Because I think there's something dangerous out there. Watch out!
Oh, God!
Dude, just drop it. We're trying to focus on what's going on inside of this house.
Wait, so those, like, shadow hands are, like, actually the hero. Damn, this one's got a lot of effort putting into it. They've got, like, practical effects out the wazoo.
Hello, Lux. We received an email from a girl named Olivia who thinks she has a stalker staying outside of her
They become
house.
very self-aware.
She feels unsafe
Very
because she
very
currently
interesting.
lives alone because all of her roommates recently went missing. She also says that often when she looks outside at night, she sees a creepy-looking old lady in the woods.
Oh, God. She doesn't even look old. That didn't even sound like bones cracking. Sounded like a fish.
So tonight, we're going to drive to Olivia's house and
Is
try
this
to
real?
find out
It is
who's
actually.
been stalking her.
I read about it in the paper.
First,
Yo, everyone, look at that nerd.
Oh, there's gonna be like a merch plug? He's a Prime RXC and the Risa Black Dick.
Hey kid, if you want to stop dressing like a nerd, just order some luxury merch.
Luxury merch?
It's the new official Life of Luxury and Luxury Dark merch. It has premium material and terrifying design. Just go to luxurydark.tv to buy it or click the first link in the description.
Well, I'm sold. These resub 50 Shades of Moose. God, this is going on for a long time.
LuxuryDark.tv to buy luxury merch. Or click the first link in the description. I don't think it's right, but Olivia's all alone right now. And scared.
So I don't see how her being scared is our problem. Dude, just admit that you're attracted to her.
Okay, yeah, I mean, from her photos, she's clearly an attractive girl. But I don't understand how her appearance could affect my decision to help her.
Right.
Those pictures go kind of hard. That's very aggressive. Yeah, it seems like they've become very self-aware.
Pull over. Pull over.
This doesn't seem like they're trying or anything to be convincing.
Bro, this area looks sketchy. We're in the middle of the woods.
Dude, it's alright. Let's just go inside.
Too self-aware? Yeah, too self-aware, I would agree. I'll give it another quick chance, though. Oh, wow.
Chester, come on. What are you doing? We gotta go.
Bro, there's a girl here.
Just a coincidence, I'm sure.
Dude, come on.
Dude, what is she doing there?
I feel like they were always self-aware. Maybe, but I feel like the first one we watched from them with the he keeps growing at night or whatever seemed like a legitimate attempt to make like a horror short. But now it's obviously very self-aware and just meant to be silly. I'm more just curious if the girl that they have to play this part here is actually the girl in those photos. Oh.
Hi. We're here for Olivia. Is she home?
That answers that.
Yeah, I'm Olivia. I catfished you.
Dude, what's going on?
Sir, listen.
Bro, these storylines are getting
all
wild
the way
now.
Here for Olivia. Is she here or not?
Nah, she's not here. I'm Olivia. I catfished you.
Dude, this is weird.
Is this some type of trick?
No. Listen, I think I'm being stalked by this weird old lady. I need you guys' help. Just come in.
He kind of looks like Joji. Hey, fuck yeah. Nice. Well, they're leaning into the self-awareness. That's good. It's always good when someone becomes self-aware. Not Darman, though. True, not Darman. That ruined it. Too self-aware. The amount of views stuff like this gets are wild to me. Yeah, usually if you make content geared towards either family-friendly or kids, it's going to pop off. Let's see. Where is it? It'd be like, what, 2 weeks old? Oh, no. Yeah, there it is.
I'll have you guys know before this video starts
John
that I'm
Tier
37%
1
Spanish. I spit into a 23andMe
Resub
tube and
Drohan.
found this out. And my grandpa lives in Madrid, and I'm fluent. Hablamos español. So let's get into
yeah.
it. We're talking today about the English versus Spanish-speaking streamers.
I had a
There's
great time in
giant war
Texas.
brewing, and it all started from Disguised Toast's Rust server. There's a lot of big names, XQC on the English-speaking side, and also a lot of big Spanish-speaking streamers like Alex, Babai, that are huge people. And it's no secret that Spanish-speaking streamers are bigger.
Yeah,
than
this
ever.
happened like
Look at
2 weeks
Babai,
ago, I think.
The guy is only growing. So this was supposed to be a cool event, bringing everyone together. Ended up being a giant shitstorm. And I didn't think I needed to talk about this because I thought it would dissipate, but the beef is still going today. This is a Spanish-speaking streamer's Twitter account, Recoy, who is mocking Coconut B. He combined.
Hey, that's the guy we just saw in the Toast video. He was the one that got the first kill. I actually recognized this section here. I didn't realize the name until now. Yeah, this guy went on a huge malding spree on Twitter.
Coconut B's profile picture with what looks like the crying emoji and made this, and that's his profile picture now. He just made that. It's like 3 days since the event ended. But let's get into some context. The event was a 48-hour Rust server that cost like hundreds of thousands of dollars to produce, not just including prize pool, but just having enough Twitch staff to run it all together. It's a really big project. Also why I couldn't be a part of it, because it was a Twitch project. So anyway, that was the idea. And it was 48 hours total. The first 47 hours, you kill people, you get points for killing people, and then at the last hour you can raid bases and do mass chaos. Amazing content. Whoever has the most points at the end gets money, and that's it. That's the idea. Pretty fucking simple. But it went to shit
and a pretty cool
really
idea too.
Fast. Now it's gonna get a little nerdy here, but bear with me. It started out with a simple rule: you can't raid each other's bases until the final hour. Knowing that the big bad wolf was not allowed to huff, puff, and blow it down, so the little piggies could run any material they wanted. They didn't have to get custom with any bricks today. So that's what they did. And inevitably, at some point, a bullet hit the thing, and they got kind of upset about that. And so, you know, they were like, okay, now we can't shoot them. And it was kind of a, you know, a cheesy but also smart tactic. But the American streamers got around it because they basically used ladders to get into the base without breaking anything, and stole some loot. Now this was done without breaking or maybe raiding, but the Spanish streamers were like, oh, okay, that's cringe. That shouldn't be allowed. So the admins got involved. They set new rules. Okay, now you can't enter the square. Stop, don't touch me there. Everyone has a 15 by 15 no square, and you can't invade it at all. That was the rules. Everyone was happy with it. And then the Spanish streamers immediately broke the rules. Maybe it was a bit of revenge because they didn't get like all of their loot back from the Americans coming in. They're like, this is real dumb. And so it was like,
this feels like normal Rust.
But they broke the rules that were just made. And so then the admins are like, okay, look, you have to return this stuff and we'll reset again. The whole story kind of feels like one of those adults at a playground, and they have to be like the arbiter for the kids. And you'd be like, oh, Timmy, please return the doll that you stole and say sorry. But it kept fucking happening. Like, Timmy kept stealing the goddamn doll, and shit kept happening. So the admins were getting involved a lot early on, and there was mostly drama from the event. And
that's all I know from it.
Arguments
on Twitter.
On people being allowed to use certain pistols, and basically trying to define the rules and not actually just play the game and have great content and interactions with people that you rarely ever get to interact with.
Like the leader, like they're not, dude. This is a fucking prediction I have for tomorrow's event. Tomorrow, I predict that this tournament's gonna end.
Oh, regular old Nostradamus.
I feel like we're gonna be ahead on points, and they'll leave, not even see this entire thing through.
Well, turns out, morning of the final day of the event, the captain of the Spanish team, Alex, who has 6.4 million Twitter followers, giant streamer, tweeted a Twitter thread that translates basically to, hey, thanks for the invite. There's a lot of bullshit going on, like Coconut B. I'm not very good at Rust, so I have to look to my players. They weren't supposed to be using a certain pistol early on, which turns out that everyone was allowed to use pistols at any point. The primitive rule wasn't actually a rule, but everyone was abiding by it anyway, but a minor note. And then they stole a helicopter and didn't return it, which, you know, fair. That sounds annoying. That sounds frustrating.
Yeah, Tiana's watching
and a bunch of bullshit happened. So here's the thing. They're not respecting us because this is all an American event and the Americans make the rules. It's on American servers. So we, the Spanish, aren't going to play. And they quit. They quit right there. Now, this wasn't unprecedented. The prediction kind of was obvious because they had gone on strike. They were almost trying to leverage that they were half the event. So if they weren't playing in the event and they didn't get the rules they wanted, then the event wouldn't proceed. You just have to agree to do it. And if people break it, you're like, fuck, this sucks.
Yeah, it's kind of similar to
all
Ark.
the power that you would like.
All survival games are somewhat similar. They share the same DNA.
Part of this is these tweets are in Spanish because I am Spanish, and thanks again for toast. No drama with him. Okay, you know, finale. It's supposed to be a cool raid. It's supposed to be nice. And look, if that was everything that happened,
it'd be pretty boring.
That's okay. Like I would say, hey, play it out just because it's better content, and I think content is key. As king. I would rather lose and be the punching bag for someone else to win and have better overall content than no content at all. But I understand a bit.
I am an American and I love oil.
Being a captain and not being good enough that you want to continue through the rules.
All right.
But there were Spanish streamers, including Alex, who were also super inappropriate.
It was very American.
There were a lot of viewers that are inappropriate, but when the captains, when the streamers are saying fucked up shit, then it's harder to defend. And this is Rikoi, who is the same guy who's making fun of Coconut B.
Yeah, this guy was really fuming.
Profile picture, just typing a slur into chat, and Alex, the captain of the Spanish stream, the big Spanish streamer, being like, "Oh, what's the R word?" And then they type in the N word, not actually typing it out fully, but like they're joking that, hey, this isn't a slur. Oh, you're talking about the R word. You mean this, and then typing the letter N, implying the N word, which you like. It's not done from a place of like, hey, this is a fun little bit. Let's do that. Even if they would like, even if they're trying to come up with a shitty joke and you're trying to give the benefit of the doubt and it's a shitty joke, it's from a place of animosity when they were beefing with English streamers, which I think that added context makes this a little more uncomfortable. We thank all the creators for their time and viewers watching, and then they want to make good events. We understand. We're listening to the community.
What's the drama about?
The way we wanted. We
Spanish streamers thinking the Americans
Spain,
are cheating.
LATAM, and NA communities in future events. And that's it.
Oh, I thought it was rigged against them.
And a lot of NA streamers were pretty sad. Here's a clip. Wendy Natsumi, one of the streamers on America's side, stayed up for like 48 hours. I'll let Hannah take it away.
It's like, even though like no one forced Wendy to be on for 48 hours. That's incredible. Like, Wendy is a godsend. Like, no one. Oh, rip Wendy. Wait, is that her? Oh, no.
Dude,
no one. Made...
It reminds me of Pixel Place. You're talking about our place.
Yeah. They really caught up about this. You know, the whole internet was trending up in arms for the English speakers. But I think Mendo, one of the English-speaking streamers who played the longest, right?
No, I never watched the actual conclusion to all the drama.
And this is what he had to say. I thought it was pretty poignant.
Stand by those fucking words 100%. It is
Damn.
spineless, it is childish, and I cannot believe that actually happened with a set of streamers that are grown adults when they call us 14-year-olds. The fucking racist chat hoppers that fuck up everyone in my team, my teammates, the people that have never played before, saying racist shit like eat your dogs, go back to the kitchen to the women that are playing.
Yeah, tell your truth, Mendo, yeah.
Get banned. I know the streamers are not doing actively anything to stop this. And
God damn, throwing it down.
Spineless shit too. I cannot believe that grown adults act like them.
Words I could not agree more with. I had the same exact problems when I was doing Rust with XQC because he would say something like Ludwig's being a rat and then I'd have a million people in my chat when I was a smaller streamer than I am today. And it was fucking annoying and I would get mad at X, say the same things. And it sucks when, you know, any streamer's doing it. And it seemed like the main people doing it in this event were the Spanish streamers. And it's kind of a bummer. It's kind of a bummer that it was a bad first integration from all the communities, because I think a lot of the
wasn't really the first. To be fair, our place did it first, right? Wasn't the Twitch drama? I think it happened. The Rust event happened a week after our place. Well, I think wasn't it? Yeah. So our place, we had already clashed. We had already kind of butted heads a bit. Got a little wacky in the Thunderdome, and that was good, I guess.
Are fucking dope. Most of them are, you know, almost all of them are, and make super awesome content.
Our place was more than just Twitch.
And there's nobody, I've always said this, that I look up to more than Ibai right now. Maybe Germa. I mean, Germa's cracked, but that's doing it the way I think you should be doing streams. And so it's a bummer that
Ibai
this
stream
like
slap.
melding of communities was such a flop. It's tough, but at the end of the day, it just felt like there was so much animosity, and it came from a lot of the leadership on the Spanish side team. Not everybody. Some people had great interactions.
Yeah, true. Alex B's like 11 tweet long rant was pretty
embarrassing. But the leadership on the Spanish streamer side, I feel like kind of ruined this event to some extent. And maybe there could have been more effort done beforehand to ensure that it was more fair and that they were okay with the rules before signing up. I can't imagine streamers do that much due diligence before signing up for events. But maybe that's what we should be doing so this doesn't happen again in the future. Anyway, sad for streamers. That's the drama of the week. And I'll let Toast finish it off because I think he really encapsulated it the best.
I thought there was more to it, but it looks like I pretty much understood all of it beforehand.
Hi, Toast. I authorized Shifter on all the...
Nice. Yeah, I thought there was so many more layers to it, but yeah, I guess they just really lost their fucking minds over almost nothing. That's a shame. I thought that was gonna be like a crazy story. But...
Just let me know.
Fuck it. We'll go in.
Near the end of the 16th century,
Thanks, the Prime Pony.
a man by the name of John White embarked on a transatlantic voyage. His destination was the island of Roanoke along the southeastern coast of North America. On this island, White had established an English colony some 3 years before, and he was now returning to resume his position as governor. After a long and difficult journey, White finally reached the site of the colony, only to find the more than 100 men, women and children he'd left behind had disappeared. A secret message carved into a tree was one of the only clues left behind at the scene. Before White had a chance to conduct a more extensive search, the ship returned to England, and in its wake, it left a mystery. What happened to the lost colony of Roanoke?
I think I know the conclusion, so I'm just gonna say it. I don't remember if this is right since it's been so long, and I actually haven't watched this video. I was wrong. If I remember correctly, they just left.
Events leading up to its disappearance.
They literally just left.
The story begins in 1584 when two ships sailed across the Atlantic to scout for a suitable location for the planting of the first permanent English colony.
Makes a tier 1 bunch of eggs in the tier 1 mayo.
In mid-July, they made landfall on a string of barrier islands known as the Outer Banks. The English quickly developed friendly relations with the local Native Americans and were soon invited to their village on Roanoke Island. After about a month, the scouting expedition returned to their ships and sailed back to England. Upon the expedition's return in late September, the man in charge of the enterprise, Walter Raleigh, immediately began preparations to plant a permanent colony somewhere along the Outer Banks. Raleigh was soon thereafter knighted by Queen Elizabeth I, and the new land was to be named Virginia in honor of the Virgin Queen. In April of 1585, a fleet of 7 ships departed England with a complement of roughly 600 men and loaded with enough provisions to sustain the colony for about a year. The fleet reached the Outer Banks at the end of June, but was soon faced with
I know nothing about it.
Navigating the waters of the Outer Banks can be notoriously treacherous, as indicated by these sinking ships. And when the flagship passed through one of the shallow inlets, it struck a shoal and was nearly destroyed. As the flagship carried the bulk of the provisions and most of it was now spoiled by seawater, the scope of the colony had to be dramatically reduced. About 100 men, far fewer than initially intended, were stationed on Roanoke Island, and with the natives' approval, they began construction of what was to become the Roanoke colony. The island was primarily chosen for its strategic value. It provided quick access to the ocean, while still making the colony invisible to Spanish patrols. You see, Spain had already colonized and laid claim to much of what the English now called Virginia, so they had to be careful.
Old war shit is so fucking cool to me.
A second wave of supplies and reinforcements was expected
to
arrive
thank you for the 20 gift subs again,
but
Abrasive.
unbeknownst to the colonists,
Thank
the
you, Abrasive. I
resupply
hope you've
mission
been
had
well.
been countermanded by the Queen to deal with more pressing concerns back in England. As such, once the colonists ran out of food, they had to rely on the generosity of the natives.
Appreciate the fat drop
However,
as always.
the natives
Thank you,
only
Abrasive.
had so much to spare and struggled to meet increasing demands by the colonists. This overdependence quickly began to strain their relationship. Meanwhile, people had begun to notice a disturbing trend. Every time the English visited a Native American village, many of its inhabitants would inexplicably collapse and die. The natives believed the English could kill from a distance by shooting invisible bullets, and they were not too far off. While unknown at the time, the English were carrying deadly pathogens to which the natives lacked immunity, and thus an epidemic was unwittingly unleashed upon the indigenous population. The two leaders back on Roanoke, Colonial Governor Ralph Lane and Indian Chieftain Wingina, eventually grew so suspicious of one another that cohabitation was no longer possible. Wingina decided to remove his people from the island and retreated to a larger village on the mainland. Meanwhile, Lane came to believe that Wingina had formed an alliance with other tribes and that they were plotting to launch an attack against the colony. Whether he was paranoid or not, Lane decided to take preemptive action. On the 1st of June 1586, Lane and his men made their way to the mainland.
No, I'm pretty sure it has a real explanation. I think they just moved. They literally left.
Men chased after and decapitated Wingina, and his head was later impaled outside a fort
Holy
of
shit.
the colony. A week later, a large English fleet commanded by the renowned sea captain Sir Francis Drake dropped by the Outer Banks on its way back to England. Given the lack of food and violent clashes with the natives, it was decided to abandon the colony. The colonists were hastily evacuated off the island, and then after 9 long months, they all returned home. All except 3, who were not located in time for the evacuation, and so the fleet left them behind. They were never heard from again. If the scouting expedition of 1584 had been a resounding success, the colony of 1585 was a categorical failure. Relations with the Native Americans had completely fallen apart, the severe lack of food had made life miserable, and they had failed to track down rumored sources of gold and copper which could have made the venture worthwhile. In spite of all this, at least one man...
But at least they found friends.
His name was John White. White was a painter and artist.
Thanks for some Tiger and Chacrosis in the Prime Pseudo.
So far were either drawn by him or based on his work. Somewhat ironically, however, there are no surviving portraits of White himself. White's participation in these earlier voyages is slightly ambiguous. He may have been part of the scouting expedition in 1584, but he was definitely part of the voyage in 85. What is a bit unclear is whether he stayed behind at the colony or returned to England with the outbound fleet. For instance, White's name is not included in a surviving list of all the colonists. But some historians believe this is merely an oversight and that he was in fact part of the colony. In either case, Sir Walter Raleigh was eventually persuaded by White and others to attempt a second venture. Unlike the first colony, which had been more...
What if Roanoke grew so advanced that they actually were able to build teleportation and teleported out?
White's pregnant daughter,
is that a potential
Eleanor
theory?
Dare. After a long struggle to secure the necessary funding, a fleet of 3 ships commanded by White, who would also serve as the governor of the colony, departed England in late spring of 1587.
Thanks to the gift sub Kingo So and the resub Senpai. Thanks for a long time of watching.
The misfortune of the first colony did not end with its evacuation in 1586. Only days later, a ship filled with provisions sent by Sir Walter Raleigh arrived at the Outer Banks. The crew spent some time searching for the colonists, but when they found no sign of them,
scary adventure going from place to place on the sea like that.
The same thing happened 2 weeks later when an English-bound fleet loaded with supplies and reinforcements also found the colony deserted. Unwilling to leave the colony vacant, however, the captain left 15 crewmen on Roanoke before the fleet resumed course for England. John White had been told about the 15 crewmen before he departed, so when his fleet approached the Outer Banks in late July of 1587, he intended to pay them a visit. But this is where things get confusing. You see, the second colony was never intended to be established on Roanoke. After all, the long list of complications encountered by the first colony made it clear that Roanoke was far from an ideal location. Instead, the second colony, or the city of Raleigh as the man in charge had so immodestly named it, was to be planted somewhere along the coast of Chesapeake Bay. This made a lot more sense. The water was deeper to allow for larger ships, and not nearly as precarious as those around the Outer Banks. There was plenty of open space, the soil was more fertile, and all around it seemed an improvement to Roanoke Island. But the fleet's Portuguese navigator, Simão Fernandes, had other plans. Fernandes had also been the navigator of the 2 previous expeditions and was a far more experienced sailor than White.
How does this all tie into Roanoke, though? I'm a little confused.
It seems much of the crew respected the authority of Fernandes. As such, when Fernandes decided to ignore the plan about Chesapeake Bay and instead simply dump the colonists on Roanoke, White did nothing to challenge his decision. The rest of the crew quickly fell in line, and soon enough everyone disembarked for Roanoke. Upon reaching the abandoned colony, there was no sign of the 15 crewmen they had come to assist. Instead, they found a pile of bones that appeared to be the remains of one of them.
Nice, they ate them.
White suspected the men had been attacked by vengeful Indians, and any doubts he might have had were soon to be erased. After only a few days on the island, a colonist by the name of George Howe was attacked by a group of natives who pelted him with 16 arrows before caving in his skull with a wooden club.
Wow.
A brutal yet unmistakable message. The English were no longer welcome on Roanoke. Even so, the colonists were not without allies. You see, when the scouting expedition returned to England in 1584, 2 Native Americans named Wanchese and Manteo were brought along with them. Wanchese was from Roanoke, while Manteo was from a neighboring village on the island of Croatoan. When they were finally brought back to North America in 1585, they had developed vastly different opinions of the English people. As soon as they made landfall, Wanchese returned to Roanoke with nothing but resentment for these foreign invaders. Meanwhile, Manteo was fascinated by everything the English had to offer. He became their trusted guide and a mediator of sorts to...
Yeah, they had like technology and shit, right?
First contact. So, following the death of George Howe, White reached out to the Croatoans, and they confirmed what he'd initially suspected. A large group of Indian tribes had indeed attacked the 15 crewmen stationed on Roanoke. This coalition was spearheaded by none other than Wanchese. At least
that
2
bastard!
of the crewmen had been killed in the attack, while the rest escaped in a small boat, never to be seen again. Roanoke had become a much more dangerous place to live. Simão Fernandes remained anchored near the Outer Banks for about a month before he decided to return to England. In the meantime, the colonists had grown concerned about the long-term survival of the colony. If the colony were to be truly self-sufficient, they argued, they would require more people and more food.
And a nuclear reactor.
They implored Governor White to return to England with Fernandes so that he could bring back supplies and restock the colony. White was initially hesitant to leave as he feared he'd be accused of desertion if he returned to England alone. Not to mention he would have to abandon his daughter, who had recently given birth to a daughter of her own, named Virginia, on this remote and precarious island. But in time, he was persuaded to go, and as the fleet departed in late August of 1587, he could not have known he would never see any of them again.
Oh no. The Kraken got him, huh? We live in such a fucking boring world.
After a long and difficult voyage,
I wish it was something like a fucking Elder God Cthulhu was the one like behind all of it.
No ships were to leave England until the threat of a Spanish invasion had passed. This was bad news for White, and his best efforts notwithstanding, he remained trapped in England for 3 long years. It was not until the spring of 1590, with the help of Sir Walter Raleigh, that White finally managed to book passage on a convoy bound for America. Upon reaching the Outer Banks,
I haven't seen that, but that sounds scary, Sleepy.
Plumes of smoke appeared to emanate from Roanoke Island. 2 boats were quickly dispatched, and the crew fired the ship's cannons to make their presence known. The men could see a great fire as they approached the island, but White never clarifies whether it was natural
Thanks to
or
5 gift subs,
by
Dustin.
people. Once ashore, they made their way to the west end of the island
Appreciate
and
it,
found a set
Dustin.
of footprints. They appear to be fresh,
Don't know what that means, but thanks,
there was
Omni.
no sign of those to whom they belonged. The search party then headed north and happened upon a tree where someone had carved the letters C-R-O. Upon reaching the entrance of the colony, they came across a second inscription. It was the word Croatoan engraved into a wooden post. The post was but one of many that now formed a defensive barrier around the colony. The colony itself was deserted, and clearly had been for some time, given the overgrowth of grass and weeds. The houses had been taken down and stripped of valuables. All they found were bars of iron, a few cannons, as well as 5
Iron's valuable.
chests. There
Thanks
was
for
no
5 gift
trace
subs,
of
handy
the roughly
dandy.
115 colonists,
Appreciate the
nor
generosity,
the small
thank you.
boats left in their possession. As far as anyone could tell, no one had lived here for quite some time. The story of the lost colony is often centered around the 2 engravings, and without the full context, it's easy to see how an author might imbue these inscriptions with intrigue and mystery. In truth, the carvings are some of the more well-understood elements of the entire story. At least John White had no doubts about their meaning. White explains in his notes that before he left in 1587, he and the colonists had come to an agreement. If they decided to abandon the colony before the governor's return, they were to leave behind a secret token of their destination. Furthermore, if this abandonment was forced upon them, they were to include a cross to signify distress. Because no such cross had been found, White was confident the colonists had safely relocated to the island of Croatoan.
I fucking told you,
White
yeah.
swiftly returned to the ship and convinced the captain to set course for Croatoan. But while the crew prepared for departure, the anchor cable snapped. And without the spare anchor, the captain felt it was too dangerous to continue. In the end, White never made it to Croatoan, and it was the last time he ever ventured across the Atlantic.
Yeah, they literally just fucking left. Oh yeah, this place sucks, I'm out.
While an unsatisfying conclusion, it seems relatively safe to assume the lost colony of Roanoke simply relocated to the island of Croatoan. Case closed?
Not sure, Dyatlov. There's a lot of cool history.
Not quite. You see, while explaining the meaning of the inscriptions, White revealed another interesting yet puzzling detail. With a single sentence, White explains that before he left in 1587, the colonists were preparing to move 50 miles into the mainland. While Croatoan is about 50 miles south of Roanoke, it's also an island, distinctly not part of the mainland. As such, this lone sentence introduces, if but a modicum of doubt, to White's version of events.
Like the prime thief and
Perhaps
Reset Heretic.
Croatoan was not their intended destination after all. If so, where could they have gone? "20 years after the Roanoke colony was lost, the Anglo-Spanish War had come to an
Like the
end.
prime ceiling.
John White faded into obscurity, and Sir Walter Raleigh had been found guilty of treason for conspiring against the crown. Yeah, I know, it's a whole other thing. Anyway, renewed interest in America saw the plantation of a third colony in 1607. The Jamestown colony was established within the borders of a vast confederacy of Native American tribes ruled by a man the English called Powhatan. One day, Powhatan captured the future governor of the colony, John Smith, and told him about
What a
the place
fucking
where men
awful
wearing
name.
European clothing lived. Then, after his release in 1608, Smith drew a rough map of Virginia, and this is one of the notations. Unfortunately, this claim, and others just like it, were never properly investigated, so we can never know if this was anything more than a rumor. Another unconfirmed report was that all but a few of the colonists had been massacred by Powhatan.
5K
The survivors
bits,
of
Rob.
this
Jesus.
slaughter
No, I
at
haven't.
Roanoke
Well,
had
I actually have.
supposedly scattered
It's a
across
show.
the region. The problem is, White did not report any human remains or signs of a battle when he returned to Roanoke in
Thank you, Rob.
1590. Even so, an acquaintance of John Smith later wrote that Powhatan had confessed to the massacre after Smith was captured. Smith himself, however, makes no mention of this alleged confession, and he was not exactly known to shy away from embellishment. Pocahontas. Other reports included sightings of Native American children with unusually pale skin and blonde hair, which led many to suspect they could be the descendants of the lost colonists. What they had no way of knowing at the time, however, was that albinism is far more prevalent among Native Americans than Europeans. A more solid lead emerged a full century later when the English explorer John Lawson made contact with a tribe known as the Hatteras. The Hatteras occupied the same land as the Croatoans, but the island was now much larger and known as Hatteras Island after a storm had closed one of the inlets. The Hatteras explained to Lawson that some of their ancestors had been white and able to read. Several members of the tribe also had grey eyes, a unique trait of the Hatteras according to Lawson. They also spoke of a local legend about a ghost ship, which they referred to as Sir Walter Raleigh's ship.
Whoa!
Hearing all this, Lawson grew convinced the Hatteras was in fact the descendants of the lost colony. Much like John White, Lawson believed the colony had been relocated to Croatoan, and over time the two peoples had become one. Okay, so we now have two sources over a century apart arguing for the same version of events. John White says they went to Croatoan because carvings, John Lawson says they went to Croatoan because grey eyes and ghosts. Not the most decisive evidence perhaps, but it does make for a compelling argument. Following Lawson's encounter with the Hatteras in 1701, nothing of significance would be uncovered for centuries. That is until the late 1930s when a series of peculiar stones suddenly brought the mystery back to life.
Whoa,
The stones had been
what?
inscribed with messages supposedly written by Eleanor Dare, the daughter of John White. Unfortunately, they all turned out to be fake.
Oh,
well,
cool.
all except the first stone, whose authenticity remains in doubt. This stone features a message from Dare addressed to White in which she describes the tragic death of her husband and child. The composition of the stone makes it well suited for inscribing a message, but a poor choice for a forger, as they would have had to chemically age the fresh markings to match the weathered surface. It would not have been impossible, but quite difficult to do so in the 1930s.
Why would they bother forging that shit in the first place?
The stone was never heard from again, and the precise location of its discovery was conveniently kept secret. The credibility of the writing is equally contested, and there's just no consensus on what to make of it. Modern archaeological research has also been plagued by uncertainties. Excavations at Roanoke have mostly confirmed the presence of a 16th century English colony, but have done little in the way of determining its fate. Meanwhile, excavations on Hatteras has yielded a mix of Native American and European artifacts, including the hilt of a light sword, but nothing that can be definitively linked to the lost colony. To make matters worse, much of the evidence may now be underwater due to centuries of shifting sands and erosion of the islands.
Damn, time is fucking crazy.
It was partially out of frustration for this lack of progress that researchers made a remarkable discovery in late 2011. While inspecting,
turns out the colonists are still alive.
A member of the first colony
they discovered immortality.
Took note of these patches. Historically, patches like these have been used to correct minor mistakes, so no one had ever given them a second thought. This time, someone did and had the patches carefully examined. Underneath the lower patch, they found exactly what you'd expect: minor corrections. Underneath the upper patch, however, they found this.
Siemens.
This four-pointed star is a typical representation of a fort. A comparable symbol can be seen on this map from the early 17th century. The paint used to draw the symbol matches the paint used elsewhere on the map, including the corrections drawn on top of the lower patch, suggesting it was drawn and concealed by White himself.
Whoa.
More puzzling still, a slightly smaller four-pointed star enclosed by two concentric squares has been painted with invisible ink on top of the patch. This symbol can even be faintly discerned with the naked eye, meaning it's been hiding in plain sight all along. Finally, this fort is situated on the mainland.
But what does it all
50
mean?
miles west of Roanoke.
Are the colonists among us now? Jesus Christ.
The location of the concealed fort was quickly named Site X in reference to the expression X marks the spot.
Nice.
While the fort itself
Pretty
has
cool.
yet to be found, presuming it was ever built, archaeological digs have uncovered a few items of interest. Fragments of pottery
Hey, I know his
and
channel
bits of
very well,
metal
King Oso.
are indicative of an English presence, but much like the findings on Hatteras, an indisputable link to the lost colony has yet to be established.
God damn, thank you again, Rob.
That being said, the research is still ongoing, and the smoking gun, whatever it may be, will perhaps
can do
have
that
been
next.
found by the time you're watching this. Presuming this is the intended location for the city of
Thank
Raleigh,
you, Rob.
one
Thanks to
has to
resub
wonder,
Rubhub.
why was it concealed with a patch? Tempting as it may be to envision some elaborate conspiracy, there is a very simple explanation. Remember how in 1608 John Smith sent this rough map of Virginia
Yes, how
back
could I
to
forget
England?
1608?
Well, this is not the original map, but an illicit copy. A copy made in secret by the Spanish ambassador and covertly passed along to the King of Spain. So England had good reason to worry about sensitive information, such as the location of a fort, being intercepted by enemy spies. Another example is how the colony on Roanoke was concealed through omission. We still don't know the precise location or layout of the colony because it was never indicated on any of the surviving maps. While it continues
What do you mean? I was looking right at it.
among historians and archaeologists, this secrecy did serve a purpose as it prevented Spain from ever finding the colony. In fact, Spain continued to search for the colony long after it was lost, so it's unlikely they had anything
Thanks to
to
give
do
some
with its
potato and prime
disappearance.
vengeful.
On the other hand, if the fort was never built,
Good point,
the patch
Omni.
may be precisely what it was always assumed to be, nothing more than a correction. Then again, the near invisible symbol drawn on top of the patch strongly imply concealment as opposed to a simple revision. After going through all the available evidence, this is what I'm thinking. So John White left Roanoke in 1587.
Right.
When he failed to return, the colony was split into two groups. One decamped for Site X, while the other went to live with the friendly Croatoans to await the governor's return.
Oh,
the region is
interesting.
known to have suffered a severe drought just after White left, so the relocation may not only have been motivated by diminishing supplies and hostilities, but also
Maybe
by a
another night,
lack of
comrade.
water and crop production.
It's
As
getting late,
years
no more
turned
rabbit
into
holes.
decades, the colonists may have
I'm already
started
deep in
families
one.
with, and thus become inseparable from, the indigenous people amongst whom they lived. Not only would this explain the disappearance, but also the Croatoan inscription, the 50 miles into the main, as well as the grey eyes of the Hattress. While I'm still leaning towards it being fake, I do find it interesting how the Dare stone was supposedly discovered just a few miles north of Site X. After all, if you're a hoaxer and you want to convince 1930s America that this stone is genuine, why claim you found it so far away from Roanoke? One should also keep in mind that much of the evidence relies solely on the words and paintings of one man. Parts of White's account could easily be a misinterpretation or exaggeration, so depending on what evidence you regard as credible, other solutions are equally plausible. For instance, some believe the colony went ahead with the original plan and relocated somewhere along the coast of Chesapeake Bay. Others believe they were all lost at sea after a failed attempt to return to England. But these solutions are about as helpful as saying the colony vanished into thin air. Without a more localized place of interest to search for corroborating evidence, there is virtually no hope of resolution. So, with all that being said, many questions remain. What happened to the 3 forsaken colonists and the 13 crewmen? Why did Simão Fernandes disobey orders and dump the colonists on Roanoke? Why was one of the 2 engravings left incomplete? Why was everyone named John? As for the most important question of them all, well, if there is an answer to that question, chances are it lies buried somewhere at Site X, just waiting to be found.
Damn. I think his theory makes the most sense. They split into groups and they both went to 2 different places. I think that is the most likely. But I like to imagine there's a more paranormal element at play. I think what also could have happened is perhaps a dimensional rift had occurred at some point, maybe due to an intense weather anomaly. And through that rift entered one of the Lovecraftian villains we just recently learned about, and that is what happened. Thanks to Prime Weathers. And I can't be proven wrong yet, but I eventually will, I think.